like to call this meeting to order, please. My name is Lois Spence. I'm acting chairman for the evening. This is the Inland Wetland Commission meeting for the town of Monroe. It is February 26th, 2019, boy, 2020, and the time is 7:05. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to introduce the members of the commission and staff tonight. Starting on my right is Jim Stewart, who is our treasurer. Amazing. We have, actually we're all out of order tonight. So
That's all right, I know.
All right, so we got our new member, BJ Hall, down next to Barbara.
Barbara is the lady's
She's not down here.
special. I know.
Please bear with me, this is my first time tonight, so she's not down here. She is our special land use attorney. We have BJ Hall, we have Ross Mastrorocco, and Jim Stewart, myself. This is Jim Weinberg, and Donna Szynski, who is our administrator, and Denise Halstead, who is our agent, and Sarah Stroud, who is our recording secretary. Before we start, I'll read our mission statement and how the meeting will proceed. The objective and purpose of the Inland Wetland Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland wetlands and watercourses within the town of Monroe. In the normal course of our meetings, we will hear public hearings and other applications. Protocol for public hearings is to have an applicant make a presentation to the commission, during which and after the commission will be asking the applicant questions. The commission will then review town, staff, and other independent comments. The meeting will then be open for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chairman of the commission. After any and all comments in opposition, or of general nature are made, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. It is not necessary that the applicant respond, but is generally in their best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for new questions unless new material is entered in as evidence or testimony during their response. Please keep all comments, pro and cons, specific to inland wetland related matters. Other applications that do not involve a public hearing will follow a similar format, with the exception that there will be no public comments allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Are there any changes to our agenda?
There are. Under item 5, application hearing determinations, we received an amendment application, IWC 2019-09A1. It's for 17 Enterprise Drive, and it is an amendment to the previously approved site development for outdoor storage. And also under item 8, bond releases, reductions, and reports. We have the addition of IWC 2014-11A1, 462-464 Main Street. They have a request in for a bond release. And that's it. Just those 2 items.
Back. I can turn this back down, please. Okay, first we have subdivision report recommendations to P&Z, of which there are none. We have regulated activities, regular meetings and public hearings.
No, we have public participation first.
I'm not on mine.
C?
Oh, heavens.
Just want to make sure.
Sorry, let me back up. General public participation. This is the time reserved for public participation, which has nothing to do with anything on our agenda tonight. Does anybody have any comments they wish to address us with? Okay, seeing none. We move on to regulated activities. We have no regular meetings or hearings. We do have a public hearing. What am I looking at, the wrong one?
Lois,
I am.
Lois.
The public participation is
Right.
for comments. It would include anything on the agenda that's not a public hearing.
Does he stand correct? Do we have any public that wishes to participate in something that is not in our public hearing tonight? Thank you. Sorry. I'm looking at the wrong agenda.
Oh, I was like, wait a second.
No wonder it was all messed up. Okay.
Oh,
Okay. We do have a public hearing. It is IWC 2020-01, 536 Monroe Turnpike. Gas station underground tank
You did,
removal
Elaine.
and replacement, septic replacement, storm drainage installation, asphalt removal and replacement, building addition, well replacement, and trash enclosure. Oh,
Are you waiting for the applicant?
oh, I'm sorry. Would the applicant like to make his presentation?
Yes.
and I can open that up to you on either side.
I'm attorney Ian Cole. I'm here in place of Dominic Thomas. He has another meeting tonight, so he's asked me to make the presentation, which will be brief on my part. I have the engineer here, and he'll explain it more in detail. But the first order of business, obviously, is the notifications. I have pictures of the signs that were required to be posted, and I have the notifications in the certified mails and the return receipts of the people that were notified in accordance with your regulations. Should I submit them to you? And probably at this point I should, my client gave me a letter from a neighbor who's in support of the application, so I'll probably just submit that now. If that be made part of the record. All right. I hope you're all familiar with what gas station we're talking about. I think it's the Shell station about a half mile back here across from the Big Y. The application is to update what is now a gas and service station. They're going to eliminate the service station part and just have a convenience store there and sell gasoline. The tanks in the ground are very old. They're going to be removed and they're replaced with the double-walled requirements that we have today with electronic monitoring, all sorts of leak detections there. The impervious pavement that is there now surrounding the building and the pumps and all that, that's going to be replaced, and it's actually going to be, the impervious surfaces are going to be reduced somewhat. The engineer explained that to you. Currently, there's no storm management system in place at all. The plans propose a storm management system. In other words, the water running off the impervious areas, including the pavement, will now go through I believe it's a rain garden storm detention area before it goes in the brook. The brook is on towards the back of the property, but everything in this whole property is within the upland review area. And that's why we're here tonight. There was a letter from the Aquarian Water Company, which I think was submitted to the commission today. They're basically, it says that Aquarian doesn't like to see gas stations in public water supply areas at all, but obviously this is a gas station that's already there, and the whole idea here is to bring it up to grade. Okay, so applicable here, the one mention in that letter that concerned me when I first saw it was it said the plans didn't have any detail with respect to the septic system that's going to be put in there. Right now, there's a very old, small septic system there. That's going to be replaced. That's behind the building and sort of close to the brook. It's going to be removed to the front northwest section towards 111. A new septic tank, a new fish field, and all that. Aquarian said it didn't have any detail in the plan. Well, that's because the plans were submitted to the town sanitarian over a year ago and were approved in October of 2018. And the engineer has brought those plans, which were drafted and approved by the sanitation by Bjorklund, correct? Right. Over a year ago. So I think that takes care of few other points. The Wetlands Enforcement Officer, I believe, had made comments, had submitted a letter with comments about the plan, and the engineer is here to address those. He has more new plans with those comments incorporated, basically, and that no other changes, really. And as I say, the septic plans are here if you want to take a look at them. There'll be a 1,000-gallon tank. There'll be 16 linear feet of leach fields, new leach fields, and they're all shown in detail on the septic plans that he has with him here. And another concern that the wetlands officer had was that there's an existing well. It's on the other side of the brook. So right now, I guess there's a pipe underneath the brook to the building from that well. That well is going to be decommissioned. The wetlands officer had some questions as to, well, how's that going to happen? How are you going to cross the wetlands? Well, the engineer will discuss that too. What will happen is basically somebody will go across on foot and cap that well, fill it with grout. That's the requirements of the state, and that's how that's going to be taken care of. And a new well is going to be drilled. And that's about it. I think I've looked at, Scott Schatzlin, the engineer, had submitted comments too, and basically he said he had very minor comments, and they can all be addressed by him and the applicant if the commission approves the application. Unless you have any questions of me right now, I'm going to ask the engineer to take over and show you in a bit more detail what they're planning to do. As I said, they're reducing the impacts on the wetlands with the new plan. It's an old dilapidated service station area, and this is to bring it up to snuff. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mark Smith. I'm a PE in Connecticut, CMG Environmental, Inc., and we have offices in Sturbridge, Mass. And New Britain, Connecticut. I was asked to bring 7 18 by 24 sets of the plans that incorporate Denise's comments and Scott's comments, so I was going to do that. Also, I was asked to bring 3 full-size.
Yes, please.
Okay, they're ready to spring out.
Thank you.
All right. I guess I'll let those work their way across. So the plan set you have there is exactly what I have up here on the screen. There's no difference. Yours just are stamped. So while you're passing those out, this is the existing conditions for the property. This what you do, use the mouse as a pointer on this?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the existing service bay building. There's also a tire business there, so this back area had a lot of tires and things stored in it. You can see there's a notch in the footprint of the building, and when you see our proposed plan, you'll see how that's relevant. There's currently 2 gasoline dispenser islands right here, one here and one here with a canopy over it. Those are going to be replaced, but exactly in the same location. The canopy itself is going to stay and get an entirely new surface treatment, but the gasoline dispenser islands are going to be replaced in the same location. The existing underground tanks are right here. The well that was discussed is over here on the other side of the brook. This is the brook right here, like this. So the well's over here. And the other thing I'll point out is we did have a site walk with Denise, and we marked the limits of, well, the site in the past, it had some additional clearing, and it had grown in over time. And so there was, I originally had noted that the plan was to, basically establish lawn and plant landscape areas back to what was the historic tree line, but we had to determine in the field exactly where that was. So we made a site walk with our landscape architect and the wetlands agent, and these trees you see surveyed here are the trees that were to be removed. and that becomes the new tree line. So I guess we'll jump over to, oh, and the current septic or cesspool leaching system is tucked in right here, right behind the building, between the building and the stream. This existing paving limit is going to be maintained. We're actually going to create a landscape island over here and a landscape island over here, and also where there's currently no buffer along this property line at all, that's where we're going to put a water quality swale, which will become part of our stormwater treatment. So moving on to the proposed, the shaded areas, those are the new landscape islands. They're also functional. They help define our parking arrangement. The tanks, which were over here, are going to be removed. The septic design, as was mentioned, was designed by another engineering company, a more local firm, Spath Bjorklund, and it was reviewed and approved. I do have a copy of the plans that were reviewed and approved, but my plans do show the septic tank location that was approved and the leaching system, which was approved. So this is the 16 linear feet of leaching galleys. This is the proposed septic tank, and you can see all of that is outside the 75-foot proposed well radius. So the existing tanks will be removed. The new double wall tanks will be installed over here. And then
Excuse me for a minute,
yes.
could you blow that up a little bit, please? It's really very small.
Blow it up, okay?
Here, you need
Yep.
me
That'll make it a lot easier to see. Thank you very much.
See? I didn't know I could do that.
Ah,
But yeah, so what I was trying to show is this is the galley, bed, distribution box, septic tank. This is a created landscape island. Currently, it's paved all the way up to the property line. New created landscape island here. It was just there used to be kerosene sales out here. The kerosene sales are being removed entirely. So that standalone dispenser, which was out in the parking lot, is being removed. Lets us, clean up our parking arrangement and add the extra green space. And as I mentioned, we're going to put a landscape strip, it's basically lawn, because this is our water quality swale right along this property line. And it'll be a little more clear when I get to the grading plan, but this is that water quality basin. It's designed to retain the runoff from a 1-inch rainstorm. And this was a comment from the town engineer. He wanted us to put a stone strip around the perimeter of the parking lot. So that's one of the changes on the plan. A couple other changes we've made in order to address comments from staff. The M's, which are spaced a little bit less than 50 feet, are your town required wetlands markers along the perimeter. We have one at the property line and then spaced along the tree line at less than 50 feet apart. We were also asked to provide some detail on our splash pads for our roof leaders. They're going to surface drain. When I get a couple further sheets in, you'll see that we do now have a specification for the splash pads. They're basically just going to be small stone splash pads. The roof leaders will discharge there. So as I mentioned, the grading. Okay. So this is our grading plan. For the most part, maintaining drainage patterns. The only change is we're taking more of the dispenser area used to run drain straight out into the street. And so we're going to capture that. The fueling area will run off, and we've straightened out our contour here so we can sheet flow across that stone strip into our swale, and then that'll go down into this basin, which is only, no, I gotta blow it up. Oops, I don't want to do that.
3 feet deep.
Yes. Yeah, so the bottom of the basin's at 473, and the grade back up here at the top is about 474. I'll just mention, you had a comment about, it looked like the building was overhanging, and it did, because when we shaded this, we shaded it through the building. What's really going to happen is this contour will just end, there'll be a little bit of exposed foundation, and then we'll keep going with that. Go back. Okay, so we did provide details, as I mentioned, and this is the one that we've added. This is our splash pad. It'll be 4 feet wide at the bottom, 2 feet wide at the top, and basically just be some 2-inch stone. We're not really worried about velocity here. We'll put some filter fabric under it to try and keep the weeds from popping up through it. But that should ensure that we don't get any erosion where the roof leaders discharge. There was also a request that we explain the outlet on our recharge basin, and basically we go back to the grading plan. If this does want to overflow, if we get enough runoff inside that this overflows, we have an 8-foot wide level area. That's just, I think it was, just 4 inches. It's just a low spot in the berm. It's all going to be vegetated. It's wide enough, and the flow rates are so slow that you're talking about like maybe half a foot per second velocity coming out of that in the worst case, which is can definitely be sustained by a vegetated surface. We do have a note on the plan. The only problem with the vegetated berms is if you don't get the vegetation established and you get a few storms that cut through them, they aren't going to do what they're supposed to do. So we have a note on the plan about maintaining it until you've got that established vegetation, so it'll work right, work as intended. Another comment was to add the detail for the town-approved wetlands marker, which we have added to the plan here. This is our landscape plan. I think it's actually pretty extensive for a small project like this. We do have the landscape architect here if anyone would want to discuss the choice of plantings or sort of the theory behind it. So if you do want information on that, I'll let Terry discuss it. And then just as far as the building, yes, it's a convenience store, but it's a very small one. This is the floor plan. This will be a carry-out food counter. If you look at the septic plan, you'll see there were limitations. We can't have cooking, frying. It's basically packaged foods, coffee, a very, very basic convenience store. Has a typical walk-in cooler. These are the typical gondola or freestanding floor shelving. Get a new handicap restroom, and this is the cashier area. And the building, you'll get a new treatment. It's keeping the mansard. We're keeping the building. It is, as I mentioned, it's a fairly small project in scope, but the building will get a new look. And I guess what I'll do is, just for the record, I'll run through the comments real quick, and just in case I missed any during the presentation. The wetland agent comments were to add the wetlands markers, which we've done, add the town marker detail, which we have done. There was the question, which I mentioned, where we appeared to be having the building overhanging the rain garden, but it's not, and I think I explained that. D is a comment about the tree limits, and I think that now that we've been out there, we've surveyed them, we've located them, we've adjusted the planting plan, which you have, to jive with the proposed tree line. I think that accomplishes satisfying D. As far as the maintaining the grass area, we do just plan on mowing it. The bottom of that rain garden is going to be close to the groundwater. If it's not dry enough, often enough to mow, we'll keep it down to a couple inch grass height with the string trimmer. It's not a big basin. it could easily be managed with a string trimmer. The planting table didn't have all the shrub sizes listed. We've updated the plan, corrected that. The existing well is listed to be removed. It doesn't actually get removed. It will be abandoned to Health Department and state standards, so it'll have to be sealed off. The idea, of course, is to make sure that nothing goes in it and gets into your aquifer or your groundwater. And it's a shallow well, and I believe it's shallow enough that the casing can be filled with grout by hand mixing. If that's not feasible, then you still wouldn't need to bring any equipment across the brook. Let me show you. So here's the, if I say that, this one doesn't have the well on it. Okay, this one's got the well. Yeah, so here's the well, and there's no reason you couldn't have a concrete truck or whichever, or a grout parked on the pavement, and you can just pull a 2-inch hose across and fill it. It's no different than pumping to do concrete work in a basement or something like that. So it'd be really no different than having a guy pull a fuel oil hose across there. A lot of people have their home heating delivery. It's not anything that should cause any harm to the wetlands whatsoever. Splash pad and vegetated level spreader outlet details. We've shown that we've added those to the plan. And engineering comments. Scott wanted some crushed surface treatment into the water quality swale and around the parking lot perimeters, which we've added. Number 2 on Scott's list is really just a comment that basically it's narrow, and he felt, or the scope of work is pretty narrow, and he felt that the things we are doing to retrofit the site with some stormwater management was reasonable for the scope of work. And then the comment B just addresses something that where he wants us to make sure we get a floodplain permit prior to pre-construction meeting. So, is there any questions?
Excuse me, entertain questions from the commission? You good?
Questions?
Yeah. Have you any?
I do. Just one question.
Okay.
Your plan showed the existing propane tank at the back of the property?
Yep.
Any comments on what would change or be done with that? Replace, remediate?
Yeah, that's right here. The propane for sale is going to be eliminated. We'll put in a fenced enclosure with a propane tank to heat the building.
Okay, thank you.
Russ?
Your new well,
Mhm.
it's located, from what I can tell, in the middle of your sassafras clump. Is that a appropriate or not really up on my sassafrasses? Or sassafras?
I had to ask questions about sassafras.
It's like a tree shrub, so I'm
It's a
just wondering.
shrub form. I was educated earlier today. The size on the planting is to plant it at 4 feet. Terry, I don't know if you want to say how large they would become, but.
I'm just wondering if that's supposed to be surrounding the well, or if it's.
It's really on either side of the well. Excuse me, Terry Hahn, Principal LED APC Land Planners. We coordinated with the project engineer for the planting plans. Sassafras would be planted on either side of the well so that you could get access to it, because you're going to need to maintain. There are 2 kinds of sassafras. Sassafras is a native plant that's kind of a woodland edge, wetland edge type of plant. Has 2 forms. One gets a little tree-y, but it's really like most wood edge components. It gets to be a couple inches, and then eventually it has a limited, sort of dies back, grows back again. So this is a shrub form, so it's intended to be maintained at about 4 feet high, so then you can get access to it.
Very good. Thank you.
Jim?
Thank you. Good evening. Just a couple quick questions. The markers that you've laid out here, these are on the inside of the burn? Is that what, are they're not any specified distance from the wetlands or anything like that?
No, they're just following the tree line.
Following the existing tree line?
After we removed the trees, we discussed to create the new tree line. We were going to locate them at the new tree line.
Okay. I thought you had some sort of erosion burn back there too, or?
No.
No? Okay.
No,
All
just,
right. The one on the, you kind of deviate away from the brook on the eastern side. I was just kind of curious why that was.
it's on the tree line, and we were asked to put them on the property lines.
Okay.
One on each property line. I mean, we'd be happy if you know, if you'd like to see them closer to the
No,
wetlands,
no,
we
no,
can
just
definitely do
asking,
that.
just
Yeah.
asking, just asking.
Yeah, but basically what I did was, I took the note literally and put one at the property line there, one at the property line here, and then spaced them, no more than 50 feet.
I was kind of curious whether it'd be more appropriate to have it closer to the wetland area, but I don't care. It's fine. Sure. I think I'm right, that the entire project, with the possible exception of the southwest corner of the pump station, is in the upland review area?
Yeah,
Pretty much
looking, I
correct.
think we have that line here.
I didn't see one on here, but I
Yeah,
just,
I believe this is it right here.
so actually the entire project inside it,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, there it is.
all right.
I knew it.
Your 1-inch storm water basin, kind of curious about that.
Yeah.
You have a 474.5 on the parking lot. You go down to a low of 472, a very small portion of that.
Oh, you know what,
Depression rather
I'm sorry,
than-
that 474, that is unfortunately the font for the
Yeah,
existing and
that's okay,
proposed.
I'm not too concerned about that. If you
Yeah.
look, I'm looking at the drop from the parking lot to the
Yep.
bottom of that so-called basin.
Mhm.
To me, that's somebody jumped up and down and made a depression in the soil.
It's a foot, yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
is that scientifically calculated to hold 1-inch
yeah,
rainfall
yeah,
off
no,
of that
it's
parking
been
lot?
modeled, yeah,
Off that parking-
by the state guidelines for
Off the parking
2004
lot, off the
stormwater.
paved area? Or
Yeah,
or is
yeah,
there
it's-
another drain in
it's-
the paved area that we're not seeing?
Right, was based on the runoff from the impervious surface that's contributing.
100% of that to the back now, 'cause it's now sloping to the back, or not?
Well, the drainage right now, there's a divide right here. And so this part of the parking lot, see, right now, all the parking lot either just goes out to the road untreated, goes off this way untreated, or this way untreated. And so we took as much as we could to send it this way, including all the petroleum handling areas, basically the busy areas. And so this section here goes this way, and the rest of it, there is a section that still goes out to the road. There's nothing we could do with the existing grades, because we're
Okay.
keeping the canopy where it is.
Yeah, I see.
But we could work everything else over to the back, and that 1-inch rainfall was analyzed for that watershed.
Right, if I'm not mistaken, everything else is really in back of that corner of the building and to the west, just that small corner. Everything else drains forward, everything else to the north and east of the building drains to the back end there, not to that.
This is what drains from, if you follow this.
That goes forward, I understand.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so all this, yeah,
Go to where the propane tanks are now,
Right.
right there.
yeah,
Where does
that all
drain
drains
to?
this way.
Yeah, that drains it back there with no holding basin.
Right, everything from
Okay.
here over,
I understand.
yeah.
So now if you go back to where we were, so this depression is intended to hold a 1-inch storm event in that depression off of that little corner of the parking lot.
It holds
I'm
this.
kind of curious why you have it there. That's really where I'm going. Why would you have a depression to hold that corner when it would appear that the other corner is far more dangerous to the wetlands in theory?
I guess I'm not following 100%, because this is the busiest part of the station.
Right, that drains to the road.
Nah, well, no.
You have to go to
Most of
470.
it this drains to, following this contour, drains to the road.
Right.
And then this all drains into this basin.
Well, that's 475 plus, so it can't drain into 474, I'm afraid. See your 475 line in front of the building?
474, 473, 75.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is the 473 contour. So your 475 works its way down, eventually crosses a 473 and ends up in the bottom of your basin.
Through that direction?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, through the swale. That was the plan.
Okay. And then just that corner, could you say, you have 475.7 there, line that works its way down, that's, yeah.
That's
It
the
looked to me
handicap
like you were
parking
trying to drain a
space,
very small portion. I see what you're doing, you're rerouting it around.
Yeah,
So,
we're
okay,
sneaking it
gotcha.
around and putting it in a very low slope water quality swale there, yeah.
And doesn't look much like a detention basin, but,
No, it's more of a
I got
water
you.
quality, because we're reducing impervious. So
either way, if you've done the, if you've done the
Yeah, no,
study,
we're
I-
reducing the peak runoff, so we were trying to do everything we could to get some filtration and treatment where there isn't any now. And, still it, let it settle, let it filter before it recharges or goes into the brook.
Okay. Yeah, so. And back to the propane tanks, I think you referred to them as a kerosene station, but yeah, propane. That's on a slab, a concrete slab, right?
Yes.
So the intention is pull it out and fill in. How are you going to treat that area?
Treat this area?
You're pulling the concrete.
Right,
slab.
it drains, that runs to the brook.
Okay, you're pulling what's there now? No, you're leaving it. Okay.
Well, there's an existing propane, well, let me go back to the original survey here. See, currently, sorry, haven't mastered my technique area here, where they fill containers for customers.
Sure, yeah.
So that's going to be taken out.
When you say taking out, what are you taking out? That's what I'm asking.
Take away the fence, take away the propane
But I think
tank.
it's on a concrete pad, is it not?
It probably is, and
Okay,
that would be removed.
Oh, you are removing it, okay.
Yeah, and
Just
and
so
then
it
we
works.
would put in our new, now, we wouldn't need this pad to be any bigger than it needs to be in order to, for housekeeping purposes. I'm not saying this whole area would be concrete, probably just what's needed to support the tank.
Are you still having a filling station there, or?
No, this is
pre-filled
just to heat
bottles?
the building.
What's that?
It's just to heat for
Oh,
the
okay,
building.
Gotcha, I understand.
Yeah, so the commercial aspect of it is going away.
Right.
And so it basically is
Now
going to
I'm
get
with you.
cleaned
I
up,
understand.
reduced in size, and a tank for
Understood.
heating. Mhm.
All right, Madam Chairman, I'm done, thank you.
Okay.
Do you have the flood way or flood zone or
Yeah.
any on the
Yeah,
map?
it's right here. It's on both sides. So this is per FEMA, there's a mapped flood zone without an assigned elevation. And there's at the
So the whole site?
most of the site, yeah. Here's the other side of it. But because there was no assigned elevation, and we needed to know whether we would need to be doing flood zone construction, et cetera, Spath Yorkland did an analysis. They looked at recent culvert installations and other data upstream and downstream, and they provided a report, which we submitted to the town engineer, and it was also included in our drainage report. And just to confirm that matter of fact, I think I wrote there it is. Okay, the report that they wrote assigned a base flood elevation. The lowest they would calculate, because there was a range based on the data they had. The lowest it would have been 471. The highest calculated 100-year flood elevation was 472.45. So, flood mapping is fairly general, and when there is no elevation assigned, you don't really know, because you can't match it up with contour lines. So, based on the more detailed analysis, it looks like this flood zone was a little broad.
So you're saying that the 100-year flood doesn't necessarily impact that property at all?
Well, 471 is, I'll show you. I think it was 471 470, yeah, 471, or 472.45 being the higher possible number. So it could get up into this area here.
Sounds like it doesn't impact it at all.
No, and we also, the current owner's been there for a very long time.
Never.
And I actually asked him about that, and in the past, I think he had some puddling up, or ponding up in this area, but he's never had it in his yard in the many years they've been there. Which kind of backs up the calculation that was done.
My turn. Was there a test pit done for the basin?
No, we'll be doing a test pit. We do have a note that we're going to have to verify that. And really, that'll just be to determine whether the mapping shows it's a type B soil, which should allow, that amount of water to drain out in a day or so through the bottom.
The mapping, you mean the NCRS
Yeah.
mapping?
Yeah. If we have any concerns when we do our test pit, we could improve, make sure we have some soils that'll drain. If it's very tight, we can pull that soil out where we're doing the grading and put in something. It wouldn't take much, just even an area of stone in the middle or bottom of the basin to make sure that it'll drain out. And I usually like to make sure it drains out in at least 2 days.
If you were to, we talked in generalities about what areas drain to where. If you were to take a percentage, granted, everything now pretty much drains to the road or on the backside of the property goes into the brook. If you were to take a percentage, about what percentage of the new development will go into the detention and how much will go to the road?
I would say 20% maybe goes to the road. 60, maybe 50% maybe goes to the basin, and then the remainder goes off the back corner.
Okay. The area under the gas pumps does drain to the basin?
Yes.
None of that drains to the road, correct?
I think part of this mat does. I may be able to, see, we've got the 474.9 going to 474.5. There's a puddle in the state right-of-way right now. So, yes, you have 473.8. So that's why a portion of this is going to go this way.
Okay.
But the islands will go to the down to this direction.
So the area is directly around the gas pumps
Yeah,
themselves?
it's part of the fringe of the mat, the other side of the car.
Okay. Let's see. Are there, you're just going to keep one propane tank? Because there's 2 there now.
They would only need one to heat the building.
Are you
So-
use existing piping?
No, that would be new.
So where would that be? That needs to be shown on the plan. If there's going to be any underground piping,
Mhm.
it would need to be shown on our plans. That's new, because that would be more. That would just, in my estimation, it needs to be shown on the plans whenever there's any kind of new piping that's being put in underground.
Mhm.
So in that respect, if you're putting in new piping, why not move it further away from the brook and put it in the grassy area that you've got in that little corner there?
Well, you do have.
I mean, as long as
I
you're
think
putting in a whole new
well,
thing anyway.
This is
but-
also our, I'm sure there'll be some snow storage on this area here. This is out of the way and, And it's, you know, basically where it exists. And, you know, it is a retail situation, so we put a nice fence around it, and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind back there. It is smaller than the existing enclosure.
Which doesn't really answer my question. I mean, could it not be put further away from the brook by putting it into, you know, tucking it on the side of the grassy area? You're still gonna have it fenced off.
Could you maybe just rotate it at least 90 degrees?
Well, I mean, the owners here, or the future owners, you know, I'm sorry, they just ask it if you'd be okay with rotating it 90 degrees so that it's not so close.
It's downsizing to 50% of what's there now. You could turn it the other way.
Okay.
You could use the existing piping that exists there now, just hook it up to the.
Okay, if you're willing to use the existing piping. So anyway, this is George McCluskey, Standard Oil. He's the developer, future operator, and what he's saying is he's willing to reuse the existing piping. I generally go all new when I can, if I have something that's been there a while. But he's willing to use the existing piping and rotate it 90 degrees and hook it into the existing.
Okay. As far as you know, Denise, is that something that is appropriate to use existing piping with new tanks? By your field of expertise.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go down that road.
Madam
Okay.
Chairman,
I mean, if
I
he's-
think that in order
if
to
he's
be
ripping
by
up-
planning and zoning, actually planning and zoning had an admin approval on this project, so I think that that's really their bailiwick. It's already gone through that process.
Okay, well, it's just if there was gonna be new piping put in, there was gonna be more disturbance, I would want
Yeah,
to see
so I
on the
understand
plan.
the reference,
So,
but
so you are amenable to turning it 90 degrees?
Mhm.
Is that what I hear? Okay. What is the actual elevation of the brook?
Well, here you've got, you know, it's sloping down, so you've got 471, and then up here it becomes 472. So, you know, 471 and 472 in the building, behind the building.
But didn't you say the flood stage was 471?
No, that was the low calculated, but we're basing everything on 472.45, which was the higher calculated number based on the methods. So you see the bank is fairly steep right there, and so it doesn't, you know, it can change elevation by several feet without really expanding the footprint very much.
Okay, you explained the decommissioning of the well. Digging up the septic tanks, is that a DEP, not septic tanks, I'm sorry, the gas tanks?
Yeah, you have to have a licensed site professional who will observe the tank removal, and they have to take samples and then do a closure report, which goes to the state DEP. So that'll all be monitored.
Okay, and in response to Aquarian's comments, how were you planning on dewatering if you need to?
Well, it's standard practice to have a frac tank if you need one. And generally, if your water condition's not too severe, you would just put it in the frac tank and then take the frac tank away and dispose of it, you know, versus trying to, when you don't have a sanitary sewer available to you, you really generally wouldn't be looking to discharge. And they also, these holes, the tank holes get shored now. They have a very tight sheet piling box that goes around them, which really minimizes the intrusion. Obviously, it comes up from the bottom, but and you only need to keep the water out for really a few days during the construction. You put a bed of pea stone in, you set concrete dead man anchors in, and once you get the tanks anchored down and you put the pea stone just flows in, then you don't really need to worry about managing the water anymore. So Generally, in this day and age, you plant it, you do it quickly, and if you do have to handle water, you put it in a frac tank, which they Aquarium mentioned in their letter.
Mhm. Okay. Oh, yes. Limit of disturbance. Is your tree line what you're considering the limit of disturbance, total
Yeah.
disturbance, not after construction?
Right. We don't have to go past those, the trees we flagged, which became the tree line, that's the limited disturbance. Those trees were gonna get cut. And most of them were, I don't wanna oversell it, but a lot of them were in very bad shape or dead or choked by vines. So, these are not specimen trees that we're talking about, but, that is gonna be the limit of the disturbance.
Okay, could you please, when we submit new plans, because we will need new plans, which will show the propane tank in its new position, as well as, I would like to see an actual LOD line, please, not just trees. Oh, why is the detention basin on an angle?
Just working with the contours, yeah.
Because it's flat back there. So
Yeah.
I was wondering why it wasn't like consistent with the back curbing. Keep it parallel to that.
I mean, all you could do is, I guess, pull this contour, but you'd have a lot more exposed foundation facing the street.
Okay, I was just curious
Yeah.
because I wasn't
Well,
sure.
it just worked with the grading. So, yeah, this corner had to be where it was to try and feed the water in.
Mhm.
And, this is your accessible parking space, you're gonna need to put your sign here, and maybe get a little landscaping in there, so. I don't know, I thought it was appropriate.
Judgment call, eh?
Yeah, oh yeah, I
Save
forgot
some
about
pine
that.
trees, some beautiful trees
This
that were back
tree
there.
was.
Yes, I noticed those. That was
that's,
part of my
uh,
question. You're going
Yeah.
to keep them.
Yes,
Yep.
they're outside of the limit.
Yeah,
That
we
was-
located that one, that
Those
was a
are
good
nice
tree,
trees.
so we're specifically calling out that one to remain.
Alrighty. Would there be any issue, so you're clearing out everything behind the building? Because there's a lot of young trees in there.
We're clearing it to here. Let me go back to the survey, because there were, you know what, let me speed up this process. Yeah, so these were, we spent some time back there, and these trees were all identified as the limits of, basically a brushy, whatever they call those, pioneers or volunteer things that had grown in. And then you started getting back to what we thought was sort of the prior limit of clearing, and identified these trees as the last ones to remove. So these would be removed and nothing behind it. And these symbols don't represent, some of these trees are an inch around. These aren't significant trees.
Right, they're not very big. What about the concept of using no mow grass back there, so there's no desire to fertilize, and we don't want fertilizer getting into the brook, so I'm looking for something that doesn't need to grow beautifully,
Well,
and that perhaps wouldn't even need much in the line of maintenance.
that is, I think I would let, I don't know what no mow grass is, heck mow line. I think we get some.
Name and address,
I'm sorry, Terry Hahn again,
Thank you.
LADA, Land Planners. The only area that we have indicated for lawn, which is the access and adjacency to the propane tank, by turning the propane tank, quite honestly, then that's going to sort of That area probably isn't going to be we don't have to worry about that anymore. The area behind that was all intended to go to, it's just a slope mix, grassy, so it's not mowed. The area where it says lawn, that's the area of where the well is, so where they will need access behind the building. So that's kind of where we're at for the lawn. The intent, of course, is that there's no need to over-fertilize or do anything. Once it's established, then whatever that ends up looking like is what it's going to end up looking like.
Okay. Denise, have you any other questions?
No.
Or have all of your concerns been addressed?
Yes, they have been.
Do I have any other questions from the commission? And I'd like to open it up to the public. Anybody in favor of this application, please come forward. Oh, do we have some?
Read into the record,
Oh.
yeah, the letter.
Okay, I'm sorry, yeah, please do.
Sorry about that, I was sleeping at the switch. Okay, so they did submit a letter from Robert and Deirdre Giannini. It says, "Dear sirs, we have lived at 172 Old Tannery Road in Monroe since 1974. Since that time, we have known the Prushko family and have been satisfied customers of their business. Their property has always been well-run and maintained and an asset to the town of Monroe. We would like to go on the record as being in favor of having the town of Monroe grant a permit to allow the Prushko family to update and improve their facilities to comply with current regulations. Very truly yours, Robert and Deirdre Giannini."
Thank you. Anybody else in favor? Anybody opposed to this application? Any comments of general nature? Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Oh,
that's it.
that's it, it's on here. Got up, you confused me. Okay, comments of a general nature. Okay, hearing none, would you read the exhibits into the record, please?
Exhibit 1 were the inland wetland agent comments by Denise Halstead, document dated January 24th, 2020. Exhibit 2 were the town engineer comments by Scott Schatzline, the document dated February 12th, 2020. Exhibit 3 was a response from Aquarian. The letter was by Joseph Walsh, and the document was dated February 26, 2020. Exhibit 4 was a letter in favor of the project from Robert and Deirdre Giannini, document dated February 25th, 2020. Exhibit 5 was the abutter notification receipts by Cohen and Thomas. Exhibit 6 were photos of signs on the location of the property. Exhibit 7 was a map plan set, 9 sheets, titled Filling Station Renovations by CMG. The documents were dated November 19th, 2019, revision date February 26th, 2020. And that's it.
Thank you. Now, as our regulations state, new information needs to be in-house 5 days before the hearing commences.
Yeah, the next
Or we have to
meeting,
hold
so-
it open until the next meeting, so
Right.
that commission members and staff have a chance to adequately review it further. And there are a few changes that we have requested of the applicant to be put on the plans. So in light of that, I'd like to continue this hearing until next meeting.
Okay. So,
Madam Chairman,
the-
can I
so the
ask,
next meeting
what is
is
it
March 11th.
before we make
So
that
that would
decision?
mean that if you could have the submissions into our land use office by March 4th with the items that.
We're still discussing this before we decide this. Can you tell us what it is that you're looking for the next meeting?
Whenever we receive new information
I understand.
on a
Which
map,
specific information are you looking for?
I'm not looking for anything. I would like to have, the regulations state that we need to have enough time to look at any new information.
What new
We may
information
not-
is it? that
We
we're-
received new plans tonight, and even though they have been gone over, they do not necessarily, we may not have caught everything that we were hoping to look at, and
Did you
that is
want the
why.
plan,
Right.
the pipes?
We're in discussion, please. Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the plans as submitted and that we end the public meeting and move it to deliberation at the proper time.
The regulations state
I have a
that
motion. If
anything
nobody
with.
seconds it, we don't do anything.
Fine.
You need to ask if there's seconds.
Can I hear a second?
I'd rather be cautious about this and follow through with your idea.
Okay. Motion fails. Okay, so. The meeting is held open until next week, till next meeting rather, pending receipt of new information. Thank you very much.
Okay. So the submission, because there was the discussion of the rotation of the tank and the LOD line, so those changes would need to be submitted by March 4th. And then I don't know if the underground piping.
If
If
they're
they're
willing
reusing it,
to,
then.
that should
Oh,
be
okay.
stated on the plans, I think, that the existing piping is to be used. I don't know.
Okay.
That would be my assertion.
They're reading for response.
No, I'm just, is there anything else you
Is there any
require
other
of us?
questions?
Any further questions?
Did you want the septic plans too? I don't think they were introduced in this exhibit, but that was
There
a
are
comment.
there is some indication of septic. Is there more that needs to be put on there?
If,
No, it was basically just, there was a question from Aquarian. They felt like, they seemed to indicate that maybe they weren't confident that the septic had been fully designed. They didn't know that it had already been designed and approved by Newtown
was it
or
approved
Monroe
by
Health.
this board?
Pardon me?
Was it approved by this board?
It's outside, I'm not sure.
Everything's inside, so I would
Yeah,
suggest you
that's
put it on
true.
the
Yes,
plans.
absolutely, it should be on the
Yeah.
plan, so that would be one more.
Well, we show the location. We just don't show the design
Does
part of
that
it.
show the fields?
Yes, that was the,
Does-
Oh, okay,
I didn't have a chance to
Yeah.
look at the new plans.
yeah, that's, I think they were just concerned that it hadn't actually been, it was just maybe a placeholder, but it actually represents the location of the proposed system. So this was what was approved by the health department, septic tank, distribution box, and then 16 feet of leaching galleys right there.
It would have had to go through this commission one way or the other via agent approval
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
we have
but-
the approval
So they
letters.
should be on the plans, so thank you for doing so. That'd be great. Okay? Okay. This is continued till next time.
You want me to eject it? Actually, you know what, no, hold on. I don't want you to get corrupted, so I can eject it for you.
These orders?
those are all mine, so I'm drifting over onto your,
That's quite all right.
onto your
I bleed out all over the
space.
place, not a problem.
Thank you.
You all set, Donna?
Yeah, yep, go right ahead. Thank you.
Moving on. We have enforcement, discussion, interview discussion. IWV 2014-04, 64 Cambridge, on permitted excavation in regulated area.
Oh, do you need to take, you can take ours out. All right.
God bless.
Don't worry.
Too soon.
Well, thank you for spreading that.
We're fine, don't worry.
Should I get started?
You may.
Oh, okay. Hi. Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Soley Engineering, offices located here in Monroe at 501 Main Street. With me here this evening is Arnold Karp, owner of the properties at 64 Cambridge Drive and 4 Independence Drive, and Steve Finn, his attorney with Wafsfee, Rosen, Queskin, and Kuriansky. Close enough. We were here before the commission in December and then again in early January. We had emailed a PDF, an electronic copy of our site assessment, which was prepared in response to the notice of violation, which was issued in November, or the notice of violation discussion, which was issued in November. When we came before the commission, we talked about, we really need to kind of dig into this, understand a full assessment of the property, and we'd be providing you a report tonight. So I've given you guys hard copies of that assessment, and we also provided a digital copy to Denise for everyone's records. I kind of want to run through what we've uncovered over the past month and a half or so, and then kind of talk about what we think our recommendations on how to address the current site conditions and how to address it from a permitting standpoint, from a big picture. So we've been busy since the last time we were here. We've had a updated boundary and topographic survey completed for the overall property to get a good understanding of the existing site conditions from a topography standpoint. The entire site has also been revisited and flagged by Bill Kenny from Bill Kenny Associates, certified soil scientist. Bill couldn't be here this evening. He's at a public hearing in Newtown, but he did provide the delineation. Him and I have had multiple conversations about the condition of the property, and he's also going to be preparing a formal functions and values assessment, which we're going to include as part of our submission to address the current site conditions, which I'm going to kind of run through. So, just to orient everyone, here's an aerial of the town of Monroe. The site's located along the northern edge. Route 25 runs north-south along the western side of town. This site is located as part of the Pepper Street Business Park. It's gone through several different rounds of permits and approvals since 2004. Route 25 runs north-south. The north end of Pepper Street intersects with 25 around here. This site's located off of Cambridge Drive. So this is just an aerial showing the existing, or the most recent aerial photo provided by Google Earth and the current property line configuration of the property. 64 Cambridge is the southerly piece, and this aerial north is to the right, and 4 Independence Drive is the northerly piece closest to Independence Drive. So this site has been subject to many approvals. A lot of the items in the notice of violation kind of talked about some of the ambiguity about the permitting history. We had provided a letter kind of summarizing our understanding of the permits for the property, so I'll just kind of rehash that with the commission. So again, all the work that's been conducted on the property was done as part of an approval granted in 2006 for 2 large industrial buildings, and then this work had commenced and was ongoing for many, many years. In 2014, there was a notice of potential violation issued. We were working for the then property owner, and let me jump back again. We're here tonight representing the property owner who acquired the property in May of last year. And the majority of the work and all of the limit of disturbance was established prior to their taking ownership of the property in May of 2019. Just wanted to state that again. I know we've talked about that at length for the record. I just wanted to say that again. So in 2014, there was a notice of potential violation issued. We had provided a comprehensive site assessment at that time. We actually included that as an appendice to the report we submitted this evening, just so you have that for your records and for reference. And in response to that notice of potential violation, we secured a permit for the re-subdivision of Section 4 of the business park, which was issued in 2015. That basically pulled the Cambridge Drive cul-de-sac southerly into the property here, and this was the approved filed plan which showed how that road would be terminated and some stormwater management and wetland upland enhancement which was to be installed as part of that approval from 2015. So this work, a pre-construction meeting was held for this work with the former property owner. That permit is still good and valid, and actually we've been working with town staff to allow the new property owner to actually finish that work. They asked us to have a new pre-construction meeting just with the new team. They had read and reviewed the report of pre-construction meeting previously, but they wanted us to go have a new meeting with them, and that's actually scheduled for next Tuesday. So all this work associated with the Section 4 re-subdivision will be continuing and be done so in accordance with all the permits and approvals granted back in 2015 for that work. And that included, the establishment of this cul-de-sac, water quality basin here, and then some wetland enhancements interior to the property as well. So all of that work is still, it's fully approved, and it's planned to be moved forward in accordance with those permits that were issued. So now it comes to our analysis of kind of the current site condition, and we wanted to understand how the current site conditions compared to what was previously approved on the property. And again, all the work was conducted in accordance with the permit that was granted in 2006, or based on the permits granted in 2006. So we wanted to go and look at, obviously the first thing we wanted to do is compare the wetland delineation that was done prior to site disturbance and compare that to the current wetland delineation, which was just updated by Bill Kenny. And what we found, so this represents the wetlands that were flagged back prior to any site disturbance. And this shows a comparison of the current wetland delineation on the property that was just entirely reflagged and surveyed by Bill Kenny. So this is a brand new delineation with a new soil scientist. In 2004 and again in 2014, Michael Klein in Environmental Planning Services was the soil scientist that completed all of the delineations. Michael Klein has since retired, and Environmental Planning Services is no longer in existence. So we engaged Bill Kenny, who's a very reputable, very, very talented soil scientist who has worked in the area before. He's worked in this community quite a bit, and he conducted all the new delineation. As we looked at the delineations, we were able to verify a few things. One, the overall limit of disturbance has not taken place, and there's been no excavation or direct impact to any of the wetland soils. And any variations in the delineations between 2004 or even 2014 into today is really just based on the professional opinion of the soil scientist. This is somewhat of an art. They go out, they do auger samples, they look at the color and the chroma of the soils, and Bill Kenny has stated, unequivocally, any variations between the delineations are just based on their professional judgment, and he did not see any hydrologic influences that would have changed the delineations. So he'll be able to provide more detail regarding that in his formal functions and values assessment, and he'll be here when the commission needs to see him, and he'll be able to provide more feedback on that. So once we understood the delineation, we then wanted to look at the overall limits of disturbance. And again, the work was commenced based on the approvals granted in 2006. So we looked and we overlaid the previously approved limit of disturbance and then wanted to compare that to the current limit of disturbance. So this is consistent with what we looked at back in 2014. You can see the limit of disturbance was primarily on the easterly edge. On the westerly edge, there has been a little bit more of an expansion of that disturbance along the eastern edge from what was previously approved. You can see this line shows what was approved back in 2006, and then this is the current limit of disturbance line. And again, it is outside of the actual wetland soils themselves. So while there is some closer proximity, but Bill did not identify any area where that was any wetland soils that were specifically impacted as part of the operations on the property. One of the other things that we had talked about was trying to get an understanding and a handle on where this excavation was in relation to what was approved. And it was determined, and I think it was identified previously, that we did some sections. The commission asked for some sections as part of this assessment, so we did provide some sections over the property. And what we're showing is the the former grades from 2006, the approved grades from 2006, and then the current grades. So along the northern edge of the property and primarily in 4 Independence Drive, this area was excavated deeper than what was previously approved. We do have some sections. This is the area of the greatest excavation in relation to the previously approved grades. You'll also notice that the extent of excavation as you go west to east was also pushed closer to that limited disturbance in that wetland edge. And that's going to be an important part of, I think, what we've determined as the best way to remedy the activities that have taken place on the property. So this is the northernmost section, top here, and then as you get a little bit further south through the property, it's still below what was approved grade, but it's less severe in terms of the discrepancy between what was approved and what was actually done on the property. Then as you go further south, you're much closer to, this was the approved, or this was the former grade, this is the approved grade, and then this is the actual grade out there today. And we've shown that through 5 different sections across the property, and all that information is included in the assessment provided. As part of this work, you know, obviously there's been a number of complaints filed by a neighbor to various state and federal agencies. DEP has come out to the property through the Air Quality Unit Division, the Water Resources Unit Division, and the Solid Waste Units Division have all come and visited and done inspections of the property. Each agency has said they did not find any situations on the property that warranted a violation, and there were no issues regarding the site operations. Air has not provided anything in writing. Solid Waste was just there this week, Monday or Tuesday, and they said that they didn't see anything out there that was problematic, that was worthy of a violation. Water Resources did provide an inspection report, which we've included as an appendix to the information that we submitted this evening. And I just highlighted here that the most important thing from their inspection was a big thing that says no violations noted. So they did have an inspection report with some other information, but they did not find any evidence of any issues out here that are creating issues with the surrounding wetlands and natural resources on the property.
Can I stop you for 1 minute, please?
Sure.
Do you have, you said there is a report from the Wetlands Division?
Water Resources,
Water
yes.
Resources Division, but were there reports from the other two that
They have not issued anything formally in writing. Air and Solid Waste. Solid Waste just came out this week. Air was out in November, and they haven't actually issued anything formal in writing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think the stormwater inspection report obviously is probably the most critical. And again, I think as we stated before, this site is covered by a general permit for the discharge of stormwater associated with construction activities and a general permit for the discharge of stormwater associated with industrial activities. So this site is covered through permits with the DEP. And since the new ownership took over the property in May, my firm has also been doing SEC inspections and providing recommendations to make sure that what's happening on the property is not creating any adverse impact to the resources on the property.
Just out of curiosity, when were the 2 permits issued, the general permits?
So we had been working with DEP since May, and they had all kinds of issues with their online process. We had constant emails back and forth with them. The industrial permit was issued, I want to say in December, and the commercial general permit, it's actually still covered under the former one, which is transferable, but they had requested us to apply for a new one under the new owners, even though it's still covered under the old one. And I think that's still in process, actually.
When was the old one issued?
The old ones were good until 2021, which is when the next permit expires. Or actually, it might be September of 2020, but it was issued back in 2006 and then re-upped in 2012.
So
The industrial permit was
a
issued.
working permit as of 2006?
Yes, yes,
From the higher-ups?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
the
you.
site's been covered for quite some time.
Okay, thank you.
So those were important issues that I wanted to make sure that this commission was aware of, that DEP has come out, done inspections across the board, and have not found substantive issues on the property. And then that kind of brings us to what's the best way to deal with this property moving forward? Because the property owners, the current owners who acquired the property in May, they want to deal with this property and get it back to be something more than what it was over the past several years. And as we looked at, you know, kind of the extent of the excavation, the extent of the operation on the property, and where it's been in relation to the limits of disturbance, where it's been in relation to the wetland resources that still exist on the property. And one of the biggest issues that we found was the majority of the site, especially along the western edge of the site, is good in the limits of disturbance, and didn't create any substantive issues with regards to the resources on that side. On the eastern side, a portion of the property here was excavated, and what we looked at was the contributing watershed to the easterly wetland system. And what was approved back in the former conditions, there was approximately about 10.5 acres of watershed on 64 Cambridge and 4 Independence, which contributed to this wetland system. And this wetland system is a little interesting because the westerly wetland, and let me go back to the other wetland plan. So the westerly wetland of this easterly wetland system, this actually drains from south to north and contributes towards the Great Pine Swamp. This wetland system drains from north to south and contributes to the upper branch of the Pequannock, the western branch of the Pequannock. So it's a very interesting how that wetland functions. When we looked at this, the disturbance comparison, so again, there was approximately 10.5 acres of watershed which contributes to this easterly or the westerly wetland of the easterly wetland system. In 2006, the approvals essentially reduced that contributing watershed to about 6.5 acres, and under current conditions, because the excavation expanded to the east, has further reduced that watershed to about 2.1 acres. So our recommendation in how to kind of restore this property is to actually, we want to come in for an application to both this commission and planning and zoning for, with grading on the property to fill in this deeper area of the property, because we want to restore this watershed to this wetland system, which is obviously at a much higher elevation than what currently exists. So what we're proposing to this commission is to bring in an application which we would intend to file on April 7th, so it would be received at the April 8th wetlands meeting. That application will include plan and grading plan, which would propose all of the grades we're proposing to establish as part of an application. That would also require site plan approval from planning and zoning. We had been in an active dialogue with the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Regulation Subcommittee on how we could best utilize this property moving forward. They've since stopped those conversations. I think they wanted to understand what was going to happen with this commission as part of this violation. So we're going to bring in an application that complies with the current zoning regs to basically propose to fill this area with certified clean fill in accordance with DEP's requirements. Now, that'll be a lengthy process. This is a very big area that needs to be filled, but the primary focus from a scheduling standpoint would be to focus on the area along this eastern edge and the northern edge of 4 Independence Drive to try to restore that watershed. In the meantime, there is an area of the property which is deeper. That area, right now, everything drains to that center portion, and that area does need to get dewatered as part of like site operations. So we want to actually redirect that dewatering to be directed to the eastern side to kind of reestablish and rehydrate these wetland systems that exist on that upper shelf. And that dewatering can be done in accordance with DEP's requirements with proper soil river sediment controls to ensure that there's no adverse impact from a sediment standpoint to those wetland systems.
Why would you continue to dewater it?
Because we want to fill in the hole. And the hole
You're
needs to be.
dewatering it strictly to fill it in?
Yes. And we've made a couple recommendations in our report on the last page. So we want to come in with an application to fill this site, restore that watershed. And there's a number of different material piles stockpiled on the site, and we've identified those in the report. Everything that's been brought onto the property has been, there are manifests, there's a fill intake protocol that's being followed. That was actually something that the Solid Waste Division at DEP was very interested in, to understand what that process was, to ensure that there wasn't an issue. There is a stockpile of some recycled concrete that needs to be sorted through because it still has some rebar in it. That area has been identified, and it needs to be continued to be sorted through to take all that out so that can be properly disposed of and recycled. But all that other concrete material is suitable to be used as fill to achieve the deepest fills for the site. But there is a lot of overburden material and on-site native material which is there. And we're recommending that that material be used to fill in the deepest reaches of the area that needs to be filled in up to a certain elevation. Then they can use the additional import material to kind of fill in the rest of the way.
So how long do you foresee you'll need to dewater and fill to the point where you won't need to dewater anymore?
Well, I mean, with any site construction area of this size, there's always the potential need to dewater as you're managing stormwater management through the soil erosion sediment control process. The deepest reach that currently needs the dewatering in order to place that native material to bring it up and out, I think that's probably something that could be done in 8 to 12 months. But that is something that's going to need to take some time to fill in that larger area. It is a larger area. You can probably see it best on the survey, which. So you can see here, this is the area of that deepest excavation, which requires the greatest amount of fill. And that is what would be the focus to bring up the area kind of in closest proximity to the wetland edge, and then to bring that up and out of, so that the dewatering isn't required in order to place the rest of that material.
Is it currently being dewatered?
Periodically, not actively.
Are you bringing any material in now to do any filling?
So there is some material coming into the site, yes, and that's kind of being done in accordance with the permits which are still active for the site. But that material, every material that comes in has to include, a certification and manifest to understand where it comes from, to make sure that it meets the definition of clean fill by DEP.
Where is it being put?
Well, it's being stockpiled in various parts of the site. It's a very big piece of property. We're talking about a 70-acre piece of property. So,
Are you planning on processing the clean fill?
some of it would need to be processed in order to be placed. Yes, that would be part of the proposal that we bring before this commission and planning and zoning.
Are you? I know that there might have been some thoughts about changing the definition of DEP's clean fill. Would you be complying with that definition no matter what it becomes?
Yeah, I'm not aware of those changes, but yeah, we wouldn't want to import any material that would create any potential issue. The property owner has no interest in creating an environmental nightmare. He's inherited a site that needs a lot of work, and he's dedicated and committed to do what needs to be done to get this to a better place than where it is today.
Where ultimately, is there any idea where level ground will ultimately be in 12, 15 years?
So we do have some, obviously that's something that we're working through in our detailed site plan application that we'd want to submit to this commission on April 7th. So this upper wetland edge is probably about 452, 453. The majority of the floor here is around 430, and actually a lot of this area and the southern end of the property can stay at or around that grade. But it's really as you go further north, and primarily where 4 Independence Drive is, this is what requires that deepest fill, and we'd probably like to get this up to like 460, 465. So we have some contributing watershed back to the easterly wetland system. So it's really going to be a transition between probably 430, 435 towards the front, and then increase and raise that site as you get closer to Independence Drive. Independence Drive is probably about 450 as well, so we want to get back up to grade at that northerly edge of the site.
What did you say the elevation of the wetland, the edge of the wetland was?
452, 453.
So would your proposal be to
460.
fill from the bottom evenly, or are we talking about filling from the top and building that way?
No, well, we would want to fill as even as we could, but my recommendation is to at least start with trying to restore this edge as part of that first phase. You know, focus on this from a phasing standpoint to try to establish this edge early on, and then the balance of this would be filled as uniform. And a lot of this is also dependent upon the availability of clean fill. You know, if there was a big clean fill stockpile someplace, that would be great, but obviously this is going to take some time, and it's going to be dependent upon the ability to source that material. So this is going to be a long duration from an implementation standpoint.
As far as how much material you're looking for at this point?
I don't have that. I do not know that answer. But it'll certainly be something that would be included as part of our application.
Okay, so we're talking April, right?
Yes.
Also, all these stockpiles that you're piling around this area, that they're protected from like erosion into, you know, existing woodlands? And
Yeah, I mean, the big thing about the majority of the site is we're down in a hole, right? So everything's draining towards the center. So there isn't a lot of the perimeter. It's all kind of being collected and managed on site. There are very few actual discharges from the site, and actually part of our inspections and requirements with DEP, we're doing turbidity monitoring at any outfall during rain events, and we also provide them to do some chemical analysis for outfalls as well in accordance with the industrial permit. One of the things that's going to be that from an implementation standpoint is completing the work for Section 4 and the establishment of that larger water quality basin just north of the end of the cul-de-sac is going to be a considerable enhancement, because it's increasing the availability for sediment from a basin standpoint. Right now, the site has a various collection of sediment traps in various locations. Some of those needed to be expanded from what was there before. But a lot of this is obviously this crossing here where this driveway comes into the property is probably one of the lowest points. So a lot of water runs down here. You can see there's a larger sediment basin here. There's a larger sediment basin here. There are smaller ones here, but the construction of this basin is going to prove to help out considerably for managing that stormwater runoff.
So that would be an additional basin, not a replacement.
There's currently a basin here, here, and here.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that Section 4 approval was actually to pitch the driveway coming in. So all that runoff was directed towards the west, and then this basin is an additional basin that would be constructed as part of that re-subdivision, Section 4.
So you said there's 3 existing now?
Yes,
right?
And right now, this road is somewhat crowned. So kind of water runs in, water runs off as it comes off here, it gets collected here, and then it runs into a basin on this side. The grading as part of the roadway installation for Section 4 and the driveway that was approved as part of Section 4 changes those grades slightly so that everything would drain towards the west into that larger basin. And part of that also includes the paving of the driveway into the site to basically pull that construction entrance from where it is today further inside the property and creating established boundaries, you know, from the end of this cul-de-sac all the way to here. One of the interesting items was, as part of the Section 4 approval, was also bringing in permanent utilities into the site, so this work is going to be done and finished. We've run into an issue with Eversource where they won't install the gas service until they have a customer to install to. So part of our application is going to include a structure, a permanent structure along this southern edge to enable us to actually get that gas service to finish this end. So we can have a full, neat, clean, tidy, finished up southern end of the property.
Do you have the definition of clean fill?
We have the current definition. I don't have it readily available, but I'm certainly familiar with it. It's somewhat broad in its definition, but it does, yeah.
Please enlighten me.
I wouldn't want to speak out of turn. I'd want to look it up and read it to you, but.
Okay.
Would you like me to do that?
No, if you're not prepared to do that, that's fine. I'd like it at some point, though.
Yeah, we can provide it.
Yeah, we
now-
did. We asked you for that last time, actually.
Yeah, I think we did. And another thing.
I knew I forgot something.
Obviously, in the future, you're planning hopefully some fairly decent-sized buildings on this property.
Yes.
You're gonna be putting these on structural fill, or your plan is to put them on this clean fill that you're gonna put down with special foundations? How's that gonna work?
So the majority of the site, the southern end of the site, we actually have the site being marketed now and it can accommodate some very large industrial buildings. We actually have a plan out there on the market that shows a building, you know, in excess of 300,000 square feet that can really be accommodated in the short order, because that southern end of the site is almost prepped and ready for it. Now, once we get further north, where we want to propose some of these deeper fills, we'd want to place this material so that it can accommodate future development. Now, when we have fills of this depth, we can manage how that material gets placed, the size of those lifts, the size of the aggregate, and the material that actually goes in the hole. But we are planning on doing this in a way so it's controlled so that it can be used in the future.
Okay.
Kevin? The issues on green, have any NV products, does that have anything to do with this
No, it does
property at all? The DEP refers to a permit that's held by Monroe Land Holdings that had to be revoked and reissued in Rockhead LLC name, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that the process, or where's that?
Yes, that's everything. So the industrial permit was formally issued. The construction general permit is in process right now. And that was really just because when the original permit was issued, it was prior to their online electric process.
Mm-hmm.
So it was their issue. That permit's transferable from one owner to the next, and it's still covered under that permit, even though it was issued to Monroe Land Holdings. They just couldn't transfer it because it wasn't in their online system, which is why they asked us to submit a new application.
But that's in transition, you say, right now, or?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's still covered under the former
I
permit.
understand. The town permitting that you're relying on, that's still in the name of John?
I think those permits were transferred as part of closing.
Okay, they were transferred.
I believe so.
Okay, so those are officially then in the name of Rockhead?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
And we provided the town what they needed in terms of the transferring of the subdivision approval for Section 4. That new bonds were posted to cover the old bonds, and then there was an issue with the rider, which got worked through, and that's all ready. That's why we're able to have this second pre-construction meeting.
Is there any, this whole thing is, rises out of this violation. So, as far as I can understand, your response to this now is continue working under the permit, the town permit, and then come eventually with a program that addresses the other issues. Is that right? Or is there anything you're doing right now to respond to the violation?
There's a lot of, there's actually, the new owner has done quite a bit to respond to that violation before the violation was even issued. You know, one of the things that we've been focused on is making sure that proper SEC measures are in place. One of the bullets from the violation talked about the detention basin that was approved as part of section, I think it was section 3, along the northern end of the site. You know, this aerial happened to be taken at a time where that basin was almost, destroyed in its entirety. The current owner has been working to restore that, and the functions of that basin have been restored, and it's continuously getting cleaned up and perfected.
Right.
So there are a lot of elements that are kind of being done as part of the active operations to address any of the deficiencies that had been there before they took ownership.
Right. I know you've done part of this, but have you clearly gone violation issue by issue by issue and responded to them? And don't we need to get there if we haven't done that?
Well, so there were a lot of items in the violation from a bullet standpoint that were unclear and some completely unrelated to the site activities. There was discussion about a road that was never built. That had nothing to do with this site, and it also isn't a wetland violation. There were, so we had provided some responses to some of those items, but what I did was in preparing this memorandum, we addressed all of those items by really focusing on the condition of the property. So we haven't given you a point by point. We're happy to if the commission feels like they need that, but I think the big picture was we want to understand where the site is, where the site was, where the site is, and how we can bring this site forward. So that was our primary focus, rather than go point by point, because some of the things, again, didn't seem to be wetland violations and weren't really applicable to this specific site. There was a comment about Independence Drive not being accepted by the town. The road was constructed and the maps were filed, but the town never accepted it. That is nothing. That's not a wetland violation. It also has nothing to do with this specific site. And subsequently, other approvals were granted for properties on that road and constructed, and they're open. So, we can do a point-by-point response if the commission feels like that's necessary. The picture was, let's get an idea of what's going on, and let's focus on how we can move this thing forward.
Right, and that's honorable, I understand that. But, and maybe council can address it, but don't we have certain time constraints that go into effect when we have this type of violation and a response time? By state statute, we have some clock ticking here. Once you answer a violation, then we have to take action within a certain period of time, for example. I mean, we basically made an agreement at the meeting that we would postpone any action until this date.
Right.
Now, in your view, there's no, and council can address it, is there no time frame that now goes into effect in response to this type of violation?
I don't believe so. I think that's within the discretion of this commission. I could be wrong about that. I haven't researched it in preparation for today's meeting. Perhaps Attorney Schellenberger knows the answer to that, but I don't believe there is a time limit. And my understanding is, and again, I'm sort of in and out of this, is that the violation now is sort of passive. It's not ongoing. And so in order to remedy the passive violation, you need to take some action. And in order to take that action, we need your permission to take that action. So that we need your blessing, which is what we're working towards, to remedy this passive violation. There is no active violation, as far as we understand. There's a violation that has existed historically, but it's not getting any worse. And in fact, I think the new owner has taken measures with the monitoring by Kevin's firm about silt, about water, to make sure that there's no additional contribution to the violation, that it is static, I guess is probably the best word, it's static. And so we need your permission to take care of a static violation. And under those circumstances, I don't see what would be benefit. We can't move any faster to take care of that static violation without a permit from you. So we're working very hard, and I think obviously we're on the same team. I thought Kevin has done a great job of sort of assessing where this property is now and what needs to be done going further. We need the wetlands assessment, which, regarding the values, we need the vernal pool assessment, which I understand. Yeah, the vernal pool assessment, you probably know this better than I do, is you can't assess vernal pools at this time of year. That's going to be done as quickly as possible by Bill Kenny. And so we will get that vernal pool assessment. We'll come back to you with a plan to remedy the static violation, hopefully get a permit from you, and start moving forward.
Can I characterize that response to mean that you would treat this as your ongoing answer to the violation? In other words, you're still in process of answering the violation? Let me explain.
Sure.
In my view, there is a time frame, and I would be very upset if all of a sudden 2 meetings from now you showed up and said, by the way, you guys missed your deadline because you were supposed to take action at a certain time. Let's just assume, right? So if we're under the understanding you're still working out the process and trying to solve the problem, then we're not in that trap. So if you can characterize it that way, I'm okay with it.
I think we are, if I understand your point, I think we are in that process. And I think, and perhaps there was some confusion based on some remarks that I made at some point, that the fact that these violations predated this ownership by many, many, many years was not a statutory waiver by this commission, but perhaps what we call an equitable one, okay? That by your inaction for years and years and years, before my client ever took ownership, you sort of maybe put my client in a bad position. We're not arguing that now. We've come here in good faith with a plan. We're moving forward. We're not making any legal arguments that we don't have any obligation to clear up these violations. In fact, everything we've done is an indication that we want to clear up the violations. And in fact, I think when I first appeared before you, I said that, and it's true, the owner needs to get this property remedied. He has to. He didn't buy the property to allow ongoing violations to occur, because that would mean any potential renter or purchaser of a portion of the property would never buy it. So he's got to get these things remedied, especially in light of the fact that there's a notice of violation out there now. So
Right.
we're all on board here, I think.
I don't know whether you would have succeeded in taking that position, but I understand your point.
Yes.
However, the violation date does, in of itself, starts the calendar, and that's what bothers me. So we have a violation. We made an agreement that nothing was going to take place until at least this meeting, so that was clear. So I think that you've answered the question. You know, basically, we're still in the process of responding to a violation and trying to work out the eventual solution, even if that involves a plan that you're going to, an application that's coming forward sometime in the future.
Right, and I think the fact that we've indicated we are filing an application is an acknowledgement that we have to file an application, and you're going to get that in a month or so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a chance that we can get a clear plan that shows elevations throughout the whole property?
Yep, all of that is included in the assessment, so we have an updated current boundary and topographic survey in there. I think it's Appendix A, and then the exhibits attached to this.
It's in here?
It's all in there, yes.
This is it.
You're talking about this? That one?
Something like
No,
that.
No,
this is the survey. The survey's in there. The survey is in Appendix A of that document, which we provided both an electronic copy and obviously the paper copies. The commission wants full-size plans. We're happy to provide full-size plans. We just printed 11x17s for ease of the delivery.
Well, we didn't get these until the meeting opened, so
Under-
we haven't had a chance to look at them.
We understand that. We understand. And it's a big piece of property. It was a lot of wetlands to hang. It was a lot of survey to do. We didn't get the actual survey until Thursday.
And so you can do something a little bigger, because I'm old and I can't see.
We'll provide full-size copies.
That's why we sent it electronically.
Yeah.
Just to get it here, all right. I get it.
Yeah.
The
Well,
next
I
time, let's-
have, honestly, Arnold Carp, I'm the owner, as you know. I had the same issues that you guys did. So they sent it to me, we printed it. I have a big printer and I still couldn't make. That's why we've sent it electronically and given you what we have. But in reference, I think Jim asked the question about timing. as soon as I can get a plan into you guys and start to find clean fill. It's not like there's a pile of fill that I have that I can come and fill this in. But I can, people have called and said, geez, we have, certified clean fill, and I can't make plans with them to start to move it in. It's, millions of cubic yards, and the long-term view is to get this out of, I'll call it quarry-dom and into industrial parkdom. So, we've been working with Kevin's office, but getting back to Jim's comment about, ongoing violations, we've had, deep there, I'm there at least once a week where, Kevin's office is checking for all the important things. Our silt and erosion controls are in. We're rebuilding, right now the basin that was damaged. We have a pre-construction meeting to go get the other side of the property to build the cul-de-sac. So again, I'm here, and I've said it from the beginning, to work with the town, work with Wetlands and P&Z to turn this from what it is to what it should be. But on 70 acres, it's not like we're looking at a quarter acre, and I can say to you, on Tuesday, I can fix this. But we have all the right monitoring in. And again, I always get concerned when DEP shows up, but we have passed all their inspections. The only comment they made is in one of the garages that's there. We have something that's called waste oil, and the gentleman said, geez, that's not waste oil, because waste oil has dirt in it that's reusable oil for your heater. So I mean, we've passed everything that they have asked with, shining stars. Doesn't mean that there isn't a long way to go on this project.
Mr. Carper, are you still processing material, any of it off-site?
When you say processing,
Are you taking any of the material that is currently on the site that is native? Are you taking any of it off-site?
not currently, no.
The crushing plant, it's just stagnant right now, or?
Yeah.
I don't believe the crusher's on this site.
Site, yeah. The crusher's is not on the site, so my answer would be that very little activity at this point.
Well, there was not that long ago, from what I understand from meetings that I was attending and stuff. I did hear that there were still trucks leaving the site with material in them. Is that, you said that's not currently happening right now?
Well, I know the crusher isn't on the site.
Site, yeah.
Or is there any plans in the future to keep all native material where it is? Or to keep it at least within the 70 acres?
I will say yes, when we discuss native material, what we're trying to do is make sure that everything's clean. So some of it that is native material still needs to be sorted through while it meets all the qualifications. If something
Well, if it came from the site, I would imagine it's pretty clean.
I think Lois is saying is, are you selling any of the material that's?
Is any of it leaving the site? Because we're talking about the unavailability of new material, but if there's present material leaving the site, that's kind of counterproductive.
I would say not presently.
Not presently, how about future?
Future, again, I think it depends on what our restoration plan is.
Well, you're short hundreds of thousands of yards of soil. You know, I guess I'm with Lois, and it doesn't make sense for us to allow you to potentially dig out more soil and sell that and then bring in soil to replace it, so.
Which can't possibly be as good as what's leaving.
Yeah, I don't think our plan is gonna show proposed grading, and it's not gonna show any removal of material to be processed and sold to then bring in more. Obviously, there's gonna need to be the processing of some material on site to facilitate the fill. But we're not digging out material and exporting to then just have to double up what our import is. There is some material that will come in that can be processed that would then be more beneficial to go back out. So there may be some.
So you are processing material as well, like for
Yes.
export?
Yes.
So you're bringing it in to process it and then export it?
Not necessarily, but some may need to be exported. Some would be exported, yes.
I would hope by the next meeting, you guys get your ducks in a row and have a firm answer as far as what you're doing.
The
Let's
place was run
say,
by O&G, so if I wanted a load of gravel, I would drive, I'd get on the scale, right? I'd drive out, they tell me they load me up, and I get back on the scale and I drive out. Is that happening now, and is it gonna happen in the future?
It was happening shortly ago.
Well, yeah, not since we've purchased it. I mean, O&G has been off the site since May.
Well, within the last, when was the last time we had a meeting and discussed this? A month ago? And I just was driving by, I'm like, I gotta go see this place. I drove up, I followed a truck up, I stopped at your gate, he went in, he got loaded up, he went on the scale, he drove out.
And he took out,
But I wasn't close enough to know it was a big pile of something.
probably so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just
just
asking,
wanna
I'm just
understand,
asking, I'm just asking the question, and, you know, I understand you may not know exactly the answer right now, but I'm just suggesting you guys,
Sure.
for the next meeting, figure out what your plan is. But to me, that's a sensitive subject. If you're continuing to take material out, it just means it's gonna take longer and.
But to that point though, part of, there's gonna be situations where people have clean fill that they need to get rid of, that they wanna place somewhere. But from a resource management standpoint, they may need to also be able to, they may not be able to just drive here, empty a load, and then leave with an empty truck. And that's something that's a truth from an industry standpoint that we may need to deal with from a materials management standpoint. Because part of what's gonna entice people to bring material here is gonna.
If you're planning on trucking in gravel to then sell to people.
No,
I guess.
no. The material that could come in here is gonna be something that's gonna be, something that can be processed and then placed.
People are gonna bring in
Right.
their clean fill, and potentially you're gonna grind it up and use it to fill the site.
Correct.
Okay, but I don't know how they're gonna leave with any soil.
Well, there's quite a bit of screenings that are on the property that are a byproduct of the ongoing crushing operation, which are basically fines, which could be great for bedding material, but probably difficult to place for a large-scale fill operation.
So you're saying you may have existing processed native material that you wanna keep selling?
Certainly, right? I think that's a fair statement.
It's not all that is suitable.
Right.
Any more blasting in the future?
No blasting, no more blasting on this property. And that was something that was an agreement that was made with the town right after the new owners took ownership. I think all that stopped in June of 2019. Despite a legal opinion which said that they were able to still operate under that, they wanted to show best efforts to try to be reasonable and work with the town, and they halted that. And there haven't been any errant blasts on Sundays, not from this property. There may be other activities going on elsewhere in town, some permitted, some not, but there has not been any Saturday blasts. And fire marshals come out after complaints that were completely unfounded and not true, and all it resulted in is a whole bunch of wasted time from a number of different people.
I follow you with your existing processed material, but I'd love to know, when you're prepared, is how much, what material is it, and then how much of that material would be expected to be used on site with your future development? So that we're not trucking it off and then processing more material on site to create additional material to do the development, and in effect, we're doing the same thing as we were planning on not doing.
We can do that.
You follow me?
No.
Well, if they say we got this big pile of sand here and process, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna, I can't use the fill because it's processed as sand. I'm gonna sell it to someone else. They're gonna truck all that sand and process away, and then they're gonna say, oh, I need process to build a road. So I'm gonna dig this out, make process, build the road, sift the sand, make the sand to bed the pipes, and, but you
What I-
understand where I'm getting at.
I understand where you're getting, yes.
What I don't want to see happening is 1 or 2 trucks come in, but 2 or 4 trucks leave with material.
Understand.
I want to see progress, and if there's subtraction instead of just addition, then we're really not getting anywhere, we're spinning our wheels. So it seems to me that if we could figure out a way to make this happen more quickly by not having so much leave the site, if it's at all applicable and qualifies as clean fill for DEP, let's use it to fill the site, rather than trucking it off. So,
How about monitoring? Like,
how about what?
You know, will the DEP come in and look at the material that's being filled once every, you know, I would love to have them come every day, because there's a lot of people here in this town who are
Nervous.
pretty worried
We're
about
very
this.
nervous. Mhm.
But anything that comes in, again, we have a protocol for anything that comes in. You know, we have P&Z, I've been inspecting once a week out there. Kevin's continuing to do the reports. So again, I understand that there's concern, but until sort of I can get the log jam between you guys and P&Z sort of worked out into a formal program, okay? As soon as that happens, it's only in my interest to fill this as quickly as I can with clean material that doesn't come back to bite me. But I can only do that with your blessing and P&Z's blessing. So again, you know, as we've said from the very beginning, my money isn't in filling a great big hole, it's to get that so that I can go build a building on it. So as soon as I can do it, but again, I can't go out to the public and say, okay, you're building the school, your fill is clean, I will take it as of June 1st. I've got to make sure that I have all my permits and approvals into place. So it's a little bit hard to say, yes, within 9 months I'll be at X, or in 14 months I'll be at Y, until I know exactly what the parameters that, you know, I'm living under were. But our intention is to do this as quickly, as in business-like manner as we can, and keep everybody happy. But this is not to, you know, go create more havoc where there's been. Okay. The biggest obstacle we've hit is, you know, people who continue to call, you know, we waste as much time on, you know, nonsense caused by others as we do trying to get the materials you guys need, and we do. We've had a mild winter, and that's why we've been able to work as quickly as we can. But, you know, we were here at December, and I turned to Kevin and said, how much time do you guys need? He said, well, fly over. If it, at that point it had snowed, who knew we were going to get this lucky? But all of our investigation work, again, I think, you know, when you realize most of our wetlands are here, and what we're talking about not in the wetlands is down here, so it's, you know, 40 feet in certain cases or more. So again, we're out there, we're monitoring it. You know, I don't think we can be doing more to watch over your resource and my resource than what we are currently doing.
Thank you. Now, one more thing, could you please, do you have these on your stick drive? Because that doesn't mean anything to me.
Come on, Lois.
There's
Yeah,
a
that was
couple of
the
them,
That's
and
a
I don't
DEP
quite.
photo.
Actually, no, I think that was the complainant's photo.
No,
that was
these
the
came in the
DEP
packet
photo.
tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry.
These were in the packet.
I thought that was from,
Alt 1,
Oh,
Alt 2.
that's what these are.
Or
These-
A1,
this
A2.
is, these were the pictures attached to the DEP report
Oh,
that we just scanned, so they're just not great.
okay, what's that?
I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Let me see.
Me neither.
That's a forsythia.
But that's why we sent the computer, again, you know, it's 70 acres, so
Right.
it's a little
Well,
hard
I'm
to.
hoping you had them on the drive so you could show
Yes.
them on the screen.
Yeah, that's what they sent us.
And it's weeds, it's not the
Our picture is
sepia.
much better.
And actually, this is actually, so you may notice that inspection report by
It's
DEP.
so much better.
No, let me see if I can rotate it.
Oh, I guess there's a road in there.
Yeah, it says Enterprise Drive. It looks
Yeah,
like-
so that's the other issue. This isn't even our site.
Oh, but I think one of them shows Phil,
None of
that
these are our
one.
site.
But doesn't the fill from your site bleed
What's the
onto Enterprise
pictures?
Drive?
No, we're not even on, we don't even abut Enterprise Drive. We're on Cambridge and Independence. So I can explain this because back in 2014, maybe, you noticed,
Isn't the simple answer that this is part of the DEP report that concluded there was no violation?
it is.
All right, I think that's the,
Oh,
that's
okay.
the important.
That wasn't explained on the sheets.
And all these pictures are, it says Enterprise Drive, and these were all up on the northern end of the site, up,
Yeah, I think she says something like she came there and she saw this while she was there. It was unrelated. It's
So
not-
doing
Oh.
that's up here,
Someone else is in trouble.
yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for the explanation.
One of the
Appreciate
other
that.
things we've offered, I think through Denise's office, if somebody wants to take a tour of it, from the commission, if we can find the time. Again, from our perspective, there's nothing to be hidden, so we're happy to walk you guys through if you think that that's beneficial. I know one of the April dates, when we're coming back with the plan, I am scheduled to be, I will not be here. But again, with Denise and with Kevin, I'm happy to, make the site available, walk you through, show you what we're doing. So from our perspective, there's, nothing nefarious. Our view is to get through your commission, through P&Z, and do the work that we need to, which is not inexpensive, not, it takes a lot of time, but the view is we're prepared to do it, but I need your blessing.
That airplane that's in there, is that gonna be an office?
No airplane.
There was an airplane.
There was an airplane, you are correct. I believe that was gone before we bought it or within the week of our purchase. That was an airplane that did not land properly, I was told. It was only part of an airplane,
They thought it was
not the
a
whole
At
airplane.
least the fuselage, yeah.
Yes.
The wings were off to the right a little bit.
Would we be able to walk the site on a weekend, which is when I'm the most available?
Yes, as long as it's not this weekend.
Okay.
'cause-
We need
Yeah, I'd like to.
somebody to accompany us.
Yes,
And there's a procedure to check in, and you need to have proper.
through MSHA, there's a whole role,
Kevin, I have a question for you.
Can't see the plane.
No plan, it hasn't been there at least 4 or 5 months.
Yes.
You mentioned that you have a meeting with the town staff?
Pre-construction meeting
What
with
town staff? Who?
Conrad, he's scheduled.
So it's with the engineering department?
Well, it's a
And
pre-construction meeting for section 4 re-subdivision, so I would assume that town staff would include you because you were very.
I know
important
nothing
part
of the meeting,
that.
that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, I think it's next Tuesday at 10.
Okay,
And we can make it.
that's why I'm asking the question, because I'm like, you mentioned town staff, it's like, Wetlands doesn't know.
Okay. And to Jim's point, I think it would be a good thing if you could address the violation point by point.
Sure.
That would be excellent. It's always good to have things in writing.
Okay.
Other than that, I guess we expect an application from you in the beginning of April. Yes?
Yeah.
That's the plan?
We hope that planning and zoning is going to work with us, because this is obviously a big component of what we want to do to address this issue. We're going to have to go to them informally and tell them what we're doing, to get them on the same page. But we plan on submitting to Wetlands on April 7th, planning and zoning on April 8th, and starting the process with both commissions for the late spring.
Just for coordination, submitting it the day before the meeting, the commission essentially won't get it until they walk
Right.
into the meeting.
Well, the
So-
Yeah, if you can have the plans to the office a week in advance, that would be,
we need the time, so the Wetlands Commission
Mhm.
and the land use calendar, the Wetlands Commission follows state statutes. and that the.
Right, we would
the-
accept it, it's not a problem of accepting it, it's just a matter of me being able to get it to them so that
Oh,
they can
no.
review it.
I understand. We
Oh,
need,
okay.
we need the time to actually prepare the materials, because this is a big site, and we need to do a lot of design, and Bill Kenny did his functions and values assessment. I didn't mention before, so we couldn't provide a full vernal pool assessment as part of this because of the time of the year. Bill won't be able to actually complete a vernal pool assessment and have it finished until probably mid to late May. We're going to come in with an application in April that's going to include a full functions and values assessment, including an analysis of what our proposed plans are and how those would come into the functions and values of the wetlands. It will not include a vernal pool assessment. We're still committing to provide the commission with a vernal pools assessment, but it's not going to come something that gets received either outside of that application or while that application is in process. Ultimately, everything we're going to be proposing is going to be an improvement from what's out there today, both from a wetland standpoint and a vernal pool standpoint. So I just want to make sure that was clear. And yes, the statutes, you know, if you submit something the day before a hearing, it gets accepted and then scheduled for a hearing 30 days out. Planning and zoning, they want things a week and a day before the meeting, even though state statute still allows you to submit the day before, but their schedule actually spells out what those submission dates are. The land use calendar right now still shows wetland submission dates based on state statutes. So this commission may want to consider updating their land use calendar to be consistent with planning and zoning if you wanted more time to receive and review an application before it gets accepted at a meeting.
Okay. Could we request that it be submitted?
You could, but we can't.
Okay, I just am asking.
We wouldn't be able to commit to getting a submission prepared by a week before the 8th.
Okay,
So we could, but if,
okay, that's fine.
Right.
I was just asking.
but if
Not a
the
problem.
commission wanted to accept it at the meeting on the 22nd, we could commit to getting the submission in a week before that meeting. Show you the calendar, show you what it's
That's what I'm looking.
I got it, I got a calendar here.
So our meeting is on the 8th?
Yes.
No,
No?
sorry, yes, it is. And the second meeting is on the 22nd.
Right.
So if.
So it really is up to the commission on what they would like. I mean, it's more than, it's fine by me. I was just, in order for you to get it, that's all. This was
Actually,
purely logistics.
I'm thinking it would be okay because we would not be able to schedule a hearing right away anyway, so that would give us 2 weeks to look over it.
Okay.
Before,
Okay, so just
2 weeks
keep the
minimum to
submission
look
date
over it, yeah.
of the 7th.
Well, don't you generally receive an
We don't.
application and then just schedule a public hearing for 2 weeks out? or-
No.
We don't have to.
No, I know.
We
You have time.
normally do, but, and it's not 2 weeks, it's 4 weeks
Okay.
generally for
Yeah,
public
'cause-
hearing.
Right, 30 days for
Right,
notices
yeah.
and things like that.
Right. So,
Okay, so that's fine.
is the commission okay with that?
Is that what they would like?
Okay,
Okay,
all right,
great. Thank you. I just wanted to double check that.
very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good, good.
This pile is getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Thanks for the copies, Kelly.
Well, we should have used a belt for all that.
I know it.
And I'm gonna have to
I
try
have a
to-
backpack on me. Okay, does anybody need a break?
I'm all right right now.
Anybody need a 5-minute break? Nope. Okay, well, we'll continue. Next up, we have remediation submissions, of which we have none. Application hearing determination, IWC 2019-09A1, 17 Enterprise Drive, amendment to previously approved site development, outdoor storage area to be paved and graded, extension of detention basin, addition of subsurface detention to accommodate increased impervious surface, and additional landscape planting required under P&Z approval.
We got the submittal yesterday on this.
So, yeah, you just received those, that submission tonight.
I have not reviewed it in full, but I did have some questions when I started looking at it because the outdoor storage area still, the hatch that they show still looks like gravel where it's supposed to be paved. So I went to discuss it with P&Z, and it seems that the plan we have is not the most up-to-date. They moved, in the notice, the letter that came with the plans makes mention about the dumpster pad being relocated due to P&Z. Well, not only was it to be relocated, but right now, the way it shows, it's right next to parking space, and there should be clearance between the dumpster and the parking space. So then I was told, well, we'll just put it in the outdoor storage area, so, you know, just go with it that way. And I said, no, you need to submit plans showing what's really going on. So I'm not reviewing it until I get the next set of plans.
Okay, so do we accept this one and then
They know that they have to
expect
resubmit.
revised?
They know that they have to resubmit, so I said we could, you know, we might be able to accept it tonight, and then I won't review until I get the new set of plans.
Okay.
I mean, you're required to submit,
To accept it, right.
Yeah,
Mhm. We don't have to set a hearing at the
correct.
moment,
You
though.
can just
We
wait
do have
to
time on that
make a
one.
determination.
Who's that?
That's better than my duck. Okay, so do we need a motion to
Yeah.
accept, do I hear a motion to accept this application?
Under what form of hearing?
No hearing at the moment, we're just
Just
accepting it.
accepting it,
That sets that starts the time clock.
right.
Motion to accept.
Second?
Second?
I don't think you need to make a motion to accept it, but go ahead. I second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion
So
passes.
is it Jim and Jim?
Jim and Jim.
Okay.
Actually, it was Jim and Ross and Jim.
Madam Chairman, at the risk of creating more anxiety, may I make a statement in this regard, please?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I recently had a meeting with the town planner and the first selectman and a bunch of other people, including planning and zoning. And it was emphasized to me, I mentioned this fact about the plans, okay? I don't know if you guys realize, or some of you realize, these are $10,000, $12,000 to produce plans like this, okay? And it was re-emphasized that the town's policy is an applicant submits one set of plans, and that plan can be penciled, written over whatever he needs to do until it is passed, and then he issues one final set of approved plans. There's no need and no requirement in this town to issue plans for every step as we go. So that's why I made the motion before. I'm sorry that, you know, as you know, we operate under Robert's rules. Unless we get a second, we can't even discuss it. So I would ask commissioners to consider that in the future. A second doesn't mean you approve. Second means that we can discuss it. So my only point is, here we are again, looking at a missing plan. They do not need to submit a new plan. They can pencil in to the old plan. And that's all they need to do until they finalize until a decision is made. Then they must issue plans and file them. And that was reiterated to me. That's not my idea. That was reiterated by the town planner and the first selectman. Unfortunately, planning and zoning representatives weren't in the meeting that night, but that's the procedure in the town. So, as they dictated it to me. So thank you for that opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have to spend some time in the regs and see what our regulations have to say about that. But historically, we do not approve plans that are only penciled. We approve plans that are in a plan stage, in a plan form. Because pencil can be changed, and if there's too many things that can change, and we've seen it happen. So we have come to our procedures as we have them by experience. So just to
You and I
throw
may
my
be
two.
unique on here that we both have 20-plus years of experience, and that's not my experience. So, just for the record.
I can
And
see
it's also
the
not
original
corporate
plans
policy.
being maybe 10 to 12 grand, but when they're making little changes to these things.
I had a parking lot plan, it was $10,000, and it happened to be made with one of the gentlemen just.
For the
like-
first one,
No, I'm just talking about an expansion of my parking lot. So,
you gotta find.
it doesn't, the town policy says that we don't need to do that. In all
No,
land use.
I would agree they don't need to do it, and I would agree with this, if it's a minor issue, then I would agree with you that they could potentially do that, and we could act.
What we're talking
On
about,
it.
a propane line, is fairly minor in my judgment, which is why I was trying to understand what it was that we were looking for, if it was more than a propane line. Okay?
This is what
For
we've
example,
done.
let's not, I don't mean this to turn into an argument, I want to make my statement, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. And where is this policy written?
It's a policy of the land use board, it's not a written policy.
Oh,
It's
okay,
not,
so it
certainly
doesn't
not in the
really count.
regulations.
It doesn't really count. It's not a written policy.
It's not in the
That
the
in my-
regulations.
in my-
The regulations do not state as you stated either, but
It's a
that's okay.
guideline.
Except the initial policy.
It's guideline.
Guideline.
Guidelines, yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
like
Thank you for your input, Jim.
Yep.
Okay, so we have accepted 17 Enterprise Drive, setting a time clock. Other, IWC 2015-12, 54 Garter Road, field changes.
Okay, we gotta figure out which plan is which. We have an approved set of plans. The Inland Wetlands Commission approved the plan some time ago. They had some changes, so I asked them to give me what was approved in one color, what's proposed in another, so that we could kind of see a little bit more of what's going on. The original plan, the house was bigger, and the driveway, it's in red, I should tell you. And the
The
driveway,
original was in
the
red.
original was in red, and the driveway was coming in this location. They have since decided that because it's off of Garter Road, which is a scenic road, they don't want to have a garage facing Garter Road. They want to have the garage on the side. So the house actually has gotten smaller, and the driveway's going to come in a little more to the side of the backup so they could get into the garage. The limited disturbance isn't changing. Nothing is really changing. It's just the location of the driveway and the fact that the house is getting smaller. So they kind of wanted to know, is this something that they need to resubmit? Or could this be a staff approval based on,
Is it considered a field
you know,
change?
is it a field change, or are we looking at an amendment to a past approval?
It's less impact, no.
All right, is the drive, I know that area of the road, and that's got a really steep incline to the house, does it not? Or am I talking about the wrong section of Garter Road?
Looking at the contours, this doesn't look like it's a steep,
Because some of the houses are significantly
Right. Let me get to it.
elevated from the road, which would require more fill.
Here, this was the original plan. This is a cleaned plan, I'm sorry. You could see the contours a little bit more,
No, okay, that's the only contour, huh?
yeah.
Okay. Well, if there's no significant change in fill or, cut and fill,
No, it's,
To me, it
it's, the
doesn't make
house
any
is just, it's in the same area, they're actually cutting back a little bit, it's smaller, and then they're just moving the driveway over.
it's not going to change anything drainage-wise?
I don't see any reason for anything from this commission to have to do
I
with it.
agree. Yeah, I think, my opinion would be that you could do it as an agent approval. Commission agree?
Yeah.
That was just a
Okay,
field change.
consensus, yes. Go for it. Okay, next. 555 Fen Hill Road, Connecticut precast preliminary review of building addition.
Okay. Hold on, let me get that up. 555. Okay, they submitted a letter to us, I'll bring the letter up first, that asked for a waiver, receive a waiver of jurisdiction so that they could bypass us and go right to planning and zoning. Reason being that the plan that they're submitting, overall site layout, the plan that they're submitting, the building is outside of the upland review area. However, looking at the site, there's never been a wetland permit or anything. They are, this is the wetland delineation. The edge of their storage yards, edge of pavement, whatever you want to call it, is, in this area, it's right against the wetlands. Over here, it's actually beyond the wetlands. Here, they went over the property line, it's beyond the wetlands. And actually, this is outside of our jurisdiction, but in this area, they're actually on someone else's property. There's only 16 feet between where the 100-foot upland review area is to this proposed addition. So in terms of them building it and being outside of a regulated area is kind of a question. So the fact that they're asking to bypass this altogether, I kind of want to bring all the information to it. And I have aerials, if you want to see an aerial, so you can actually understand.
Have these things been in place?
Right.
Okay.
Within wetlands regulations or?
The original building was built in 1965. Then they added the industrial building starting in like 88, 89.
Okay, so
And
it's all after
And it's
wetlands.
just, right.
But most of it's outside of our jurisdiction.
This is 1990. Here's the site right there. 2004, you could see. No. Sorry. Just trying to get a good photo. So you can see they're right at the edge of the wetlands in these photos. So the building to be built comes right over this area here.
But they're still within a previously disturbed area,
Exactly.
which would normally be agent approval. I think I personally would like to see some kind of,
Well, I mean, realistically, it should be a violation, shouldn't it?
Yeah,
Well,
but-
but right now, you're just looking at
That's
the
not-
requests.
right.
That, the violations will be a separate.
Ideally, I would like to see some kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Participation of the Wetlands Commission, so that, not the commission per se, but our agent, just to have, I don't know.
Because the original site, it was
Why don't
built
we ask
in
the agent to go
1988.
out, review the project with them, and see if she has any concerns beyond,
Well, the plans actually are a little bit lacking of what they submitted.
right, so you have to
So
go a
first
little
of
bit
all,
deeper into it.
Okay, so,
I mean, the grading plan, they gave a couple spot shots, so in terms of how they're doing it, their limited disturbance differs from one sheet to the next. I mean, there's just a couple things I saw, but that's beside the point, because the letter was just saying they want a jurisdictional waiver from us.
Are they planning on the restoration of the property?
I know, what I found of I did some research, and what I learned from past practices, they had special exceptions. So 88 was when they did the building. There was talk with them at one time about remediation when they came to do addition to the building. I guess they had been back and forth with the town many times over the years to proposing an addition. The addition never came, so nothing was ever done with remediation. So now we're back again. Now we're proposing the building.
I don't know that they can, I don't know that we can just say they can go past us.
Well, if we're only concerned with the building, you could say it's outside the.
That's what they're,
outside the-
that's,
the
right, and that's
Right,
what
build the
they're,
building and.
Except there would be activity within our regulated area.
Yeah, I don't know. You could
in order to
probably-
construct it, I mean,
It'd
you
be tough
told
to
me
construct, but you might be able to do it.
16 feet to put a building up?
Probably not.
Realistically speaking,
Well, I mean,
probably
but who
not,
cares?
yeah.
They got concrete products that are, and it's all, you know what I mean?
This is why I'm bringing this up, because they did ask about the waiver, but it's,
It makes you nervous, if you talk to them and you get
well, technically, they should have a violation.
in
Right.
here.
Yes.
In this,
Yeah.
where?
Because they're right in the wetlands. They don't
But
have
they're not doing-
approval.
yeah.
I understand, but
but that's totally separate from the project.
So we don't have any regulation that says that people can't have building permits and such when they have active violations?
Well, we have.
No, we don't, but that's the thing, it's like, so if we give them a
Yes, we
waiver, if we give them a waiver to do the construction,
We could do that and
We
along,
can,
and it
but then
could come
we-
wrapped in a bow with a violation at the same time.
Actually, I think it does say that we don't issue
There's no
permits.
active violation.
when we're-
There may
right.
be a violation, but we haven't declared it a violation.
Yes, I would agree with you there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. All right, the regulations in 6.1 say, any person intending to conduct or cause to be conducted a regulated activity as defined in section 2, renew a permit, blah, blah, blah. Prior to the commencement of such activity, apply for a permit. It does say shall. It doesn't say may. It says shall.
But where's the regulated area?
The regulated area, if they're going to,
What are they doing in the regulated?
unless they're gonna put up a fence and prevent any kind of
That's what-
activity
I'm just
in
suggesting,
there.
let the agent have that
Okay,
discussion.
I'm
I'm not
just-
saying to sign off on this. I'm
Okay.
saying, let her discuss it, and if she's nervous about it, then come back and we hear it, and make a comment. If she's satisfied that it makes sense to let them do it, then I have no issue with that either.
How you feel about
Do you
that?
feel you need additional time to?
Well, I need to get more information from them,
Okay.
because to me,
Yeah,
the
we can't
plans,
just- I
their
don't think
plans,
we could just give them a blanket.
but that's why, they
Pass.
asked me, they were looking for a blanket pass, so I'm trying to
think we
educate
can do
everybody
that.
on the property,
And
and,
they know they have a potential problem?
well, they are not talking to me, the engineer dropped the plans off, and
Okay.
sent me the letter, and that was, oh, well, we're outside of it, so this is what we want.
How did you know they were on the neighbor's property?
Pardon?
How did you know that they were encroaching on the neighbor's property?
Well, the survey actually kind of shows it, because here's the property line right here.
Wow.
And this is cleared well beyond it, and in the aerial, if you look at the aerial, that's that area right here, on Timothy, sorry, that's the area here on Timothy Hill side.
Okay, but they are going to P and Z with this.
I don't know if they've submitted to P and Z, and I know P and Z are gonna be requiring the same thing as I am in terms of plans. The plans are lacking a lot of detail.
Okay. Because depending on elevations and stuff, I don't know if.
And that's the thing.
ENS would be a concern.
The grading plan has a couple spot shots, so we don't even know
Right.
fully
Okay,
what's going on
we'll
with the
hold off
parking
until we
lot.
have more information.
And that's what I will let them know. Hmm? Yes.
Okay. Next. Hey,
That's me again.
you ready, Denise?
Yep.
Okay. IWC 2018-15-575 Monroe Turnpike. Daycare field changes to stormwater outlet which will be outside of the limit of disturbance. There's that one.
She's got two.
I know, that's why I'm trying to close everything. Okay. This is 536? Okay, so, I don't know if anybody's here, okay. We have a party here that's involved in this, so why don't we let them come up to talk a little bit more about the field change?
So you come on up.
You
and
can come up
approach
if you'd
the,
like.
Is that the right?
Nope, hold on, I'm in the wrong address one. That's why I'm looking, I was like, wait a second.
It's 585.
575.
575, I went the wrong way.
575, 585.
570.
575. So, let's see, here's the plan
Okay.
set.
570.
That's the original approval for you. And that's the scan that you sent.
And there's a photo too.
Yep, I'll bring the photo
Members
up
of the
too.
commission, my name is Michael Paterla. I'm an engineer and surveyor with the Huntington Company. Our office is in Fairfield. We prepared the plans, which were approved. The site plan, as you may or may not remember, we've got 14 revisions on the site plan
Oops.
prior to us getting our permits. One of the at one time, I had the pipe that exited the stormwater system that's under the driveway going more or less where that red line,
Want the red one?
Yeah.
Want the red line drawing up?
Yep.
Sorry, this is playing with me, there we go.
more or less in that area. The invert of the pipe was, as you see on the top right, 494, and I wanted to grade down to 492. So on revision 7, I believe it was the engineering department, wanted me, rather than put the pipe direct, shoot the water out of the pipe, and again, it's coming out of a stormwater cleaner, so it's virtually clean water. It's not right off the pavement itself. He wanted me to put a level lip spreader. So what we installed was an inverted 8-foot long by 4-foot wide a gallery, a septic gallery. And the picture shows it. It's not done. It's still in progress.
Right.
And it will be loaded with 1.5 to 2-inch stone. So the water that comes out of that pipe will be slowed down by the stone in that concrete box. That'll all be filled in where you see the water. But I would like to get an outlet, as I had proposed prior to revision 7, and bring it down to just dig a ditch, load it with stone, down to elevation 492. And that's why I'm here before you people tonight. Not to the wetlands, just to a lower elevation. So once that concrete box gets filled,
Thank you. I just realized.
it'll have an exit to get back into the water course. And if you could remember, prior to all our construction, when it was still the dentist's office, the existing parking lot was a little smaller. It all drained directly to that water course. So this is like it's 100% improvement. There's no doubt about it in my mind as far as water quality goes.
It wasn't paved before, though, was it?
Yes, it was.
It was?
Yes.
Long time
Again,
ago.
it's not as big, but there was a parking lot for the dentist.
So this is a level spreader, but now you want to change it over to?
No. We want to leave it there. I just like to dig a ditch down to elevation 492. So when the spreader gets loaded with water, it's got an outlet.
Okay, right now it's the elevation
Yeah, as
too
you can see.
low? Is that the problem?
Yes. See, my original design was to take that pipe and bring it up down to elevation 492. But Scott was concerned about the velocity of the water, so he wanted a level lip spreader, so it'll splash into the stone, slow it down.
So is that set at the right elevation?
I believe it is, yes. And again, that pipe is coming off a series of galleys under the driveway that collect and let out the water at slow rate.
Can you go back to the other drawing?
Which, his drawing, or that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
The dotted
So
line
what
is the
else?
green pipe?
494.
Yes, that dotted line is
Dotted here, yeah.
the outlet from the
494, and then
stormwater system.
494. And then it goes to 492.
Right.
Where does the ditch come into the concrete? Is that
It's,
the high end or low end?
no, not the low end,
Right.
the higher end.
Just up
This way it
surface.
would, the purpose of the stone is to slow the water down.
Right, so it goes.
So then it's just going to trickle down the
It'll
ditch.
go up and go
But
up.
it won't just be an open ditch. The ditch will be loaded with stone also. Water seep.
So basically, you're here because you're entering the area of non-disturbance for what?
That's
10
correct.
10 or 15 feet or something like that?
Yes.
I think it's a perfect solution. I don't know why we would have an issue with it.
The picture shows what the problem is.
Mhm.
And naturally, we want to rectify that before it's 100% complete.
The only fear is that you create a surface water issue and you're not. So, as long as you're deep enough in that ditch with stone, you're not, so I have no issue with it at all.
How much deeper is that, the top of that, or the invert of the pipe than the surrounding soil that you're gonna need to cut through to get?
I showed the 492, so from
So
the
it's
invert of the
like
pipe,
3
it's
feet or
about 2
something?
feet. to go down in about, it's about 15, 20 feet, you know, to make our way down and not to get into to the wetlands line. That's why I showed on an angle. Again, it's just gonna be a narrow ditch loaded with stone. It's just to have the water seep away.
This is the excess that goes in that box.
No, this is the exit. This is the exit, right.
So this instead of the lower
No,
red
no,
line?
no. Everything that what you saw in the photograph will stay. The only difference there is that concrete box will be loaded with stone. And in addition to that, what I'm asking you tonight is we can, where that red line is shown, I'd like to dig a ditch to elevation 492, and again, load it with stone, so once that concrete box gets loaded with water, it could escape more easily than it would now. Right now, we're
How short of the water course does that ditch terminate?
how
How far away?
Yeah, how far away from the water course?
the red line is about 20 feet, 15 to 20 feet.
But how far from the water course? It's 20 feet away from the water
Oh, no,
course?
it'll be
pretty
shy of the
close.
wetlands. Down in that area, the wetlands are very close to the edge of the water course.
Okay, I mean, your drawing there, obviously not meant to be to scale, I mean, it looks like it almost runs through the water course.
Yeah. No, it's, the water course is the solid line with the 3 dots, and the wetlands, well, you can see it's a WL, that's the wetlands on that side.
Yeah.
So it's almost the top of the bank.
So let me, excuse me if I'm being a little dense here, but the bottom red line is what you have currently proposed as the overflow? The short red line that goes up to the...
That's just a contour line. It's the double,
Oh, I know what you're talking about, the double red. What
Yeah.
is the bottom red line?
that's just a contour line. That's elevation 494 going to the box. It's just a
The top
contour line I
is
should.
the same one, right?
Yeah. The other 2 lines are the ditch I want to propose.
So you want to get it down?
Construction-wise, it's simple. It's just, I need your permission because, as one of you said, I'm going beyond the limit that the revision 14 allows me to go. And again, I had it shown prior to, on revision 7, but I went back and forth with Scott, and he wanted the,
But you're fairly certain that level spreader is set at the right elevation?
yes. Because we checked other elevations prior to this, and they were almost dead on.
I mean, I personally, I don't have an issue of it, but it looks to me like, you know, there's a discrepancy in something going on, because you've got the things obviously a couple feet deeper than it should have been.
You're talking about the box?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's already been approved though. In other words, everything's approved on that plan up until this exit. So really all we're dealing with now is the exit. You can't go back and jack up the box.
Well, you could if it's.
Well,
What could be deceiving too is the material once the box was dug out. I mean, there's, you know,
No, I understand, I'm just, you know, I mean, there's not much else you can do other than you remove the system and put it back in up 3 feet.
oh, we can't do that because,
It's already put in minimum grades and.
yeah, that's right. The slope of that pipe is a % coming out of the stormwater system that's under the driveway.
I think it's a good solution.
Unfortunately, Aquarium
It's-
has big problems with it.
It's,
And that's our public water supply. I don't know if anybody's read the letter that came with it, but Aquarium has a pretty extensive list of concerns.
That was back, sorry,
Go ahead.
based
No.
on the approval, because it's 2019, I had to double check that too, just so you
So
know.
that
it's-
letter.
Oh, that was before the
from-
original approval?
Yes.
Aha,
But they sent it to
okay.
me today, and that's what got me a little bit
Right, okay.
confused.
But then there was also a
There's also an
neighbor-
email, and there was also an email from him talking about it.
Did we get that?
You should have it.
Was that in tonight's?
Yes.
Do you not have the email copy for me?
I don't know, I've got such a stack of paper here that,
Okay,
I don't
well,
know what I have.
It's from Barbara Thomas.
Oh, that, Barbara Thomas's, yes, I have that one.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, and then I have a copy, when Aquarian Joe Walsh sent me an email, he just said, his only comment was it brings it directly to the water course, that area really floods when there's a lot of rain. And that's all I said about the change.
Well, it's gonna go there anyway.
Yeah, I'm just,
Exactly right.
Just get it there. You can do some landscape fabric or something, and you can just fill it with some, what size
It's
stone?
inch and a half, 2 inch stone. It's just to get the water to seep to where it always went anyway.
How much of the water from that system will be going into that ditch, and how much is gonna get infiltrated from below? Or is none infiltrated down below?
Well, it gets infiltrated. I had a set of computations, 20, 25 pages thick, that were reviewed by Scott and approved. So it's the same water that's going out. As I say, Scott wanted this to slow down the velocity, which we
Well, you
agreed.
slowed it down, all right.
Well,
That's what we wanted, that's what we needed.
as I say, the water's is cleaner than it ever was because of there's a stormwater cleaner that's goes from the catch basin stormwater cleaner and into the stormwater system.
80% at peak efficiency, that's,
That's what it's
I know, that's what DEP requires.
That's
but,
exactly right.
Does not make it clean water.
well, not to drink, but it's
Well, this is a water
it's clean-
supply.
It's clean water.
This is the
Big.
brook water.
The watershed itself cleans the water. I mean, it goes through all their property. But, like I said,
Do we need a motion on this?
Nope, I'm gonna say, okay.
I'm asking our staff. They're the ones that have to deal with the legal issues.
It's just,
Barbara,
do you
do we need
consider it
a
a
motion on
field change, or
this
do you?
amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to approve the modification.
Do I hear a second?
I say.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any further discussion? Motion passes.
thank you.
Okay, you're all set. Okay, next. Now we're up to bond releases, reduction in reports. Oh, completed items from this agenda, there aren't any. Bond releases 36, IWC 2014-09, 36 Timothy Hill Road, bond release requested.
we just close out stuff that seems to still be
Yes,
stuff.
Yeah, sure. That's all right, we got a lot of new information on this tonight.
Okay. What did I do? There we go. I'm gonna close that.
It's okay.
We're in 36 something. Okay. I could start,
Well, you received reports from the town engineer regarding, from inland wetlands and the P and Z reports.
he did 2 bond release letters, one to the IWC, one to P and Z. There's also a permit inspection report that you have that was done. Then there's a report that was put together based on the site visit. And I think maybe that's where we should start,
This review of
the review of the site report.
The permit inspection report?
That's
that
pretty
one?
impressive.
The one with the drawings,
Oh,
the photos
pictures,
with it.
Visual aids.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So we got a request for a bond release. This property was taken over by a new property owner. It changed ownership August 12th, 2019. The bonds were exchanged from the old owner to the new owner. Now they've come back and they say they'd like to have these bonds released. So we did, I got permission, we got permission to go onto the property. This property happens to be right adjacent to 64 Cambridge, just to give you location. This is the one right next to it.
Okay.
We did a site walk. And as you could see, as we walked in, we came in, I'm not gonna read the report to you, but we gained access off of Independence Drive. There's a bunch of piles that have been placed along the quarry, and then at the end of the road in the right-of-way. So we walked over those, there's no trespassing signs, and there's also remnants of stone dust that has kind of permeated onto what we believe is 36 Timothy. We're not really sure where the property line is, if that stone dust is in the right-of-way or it's on Timothy, 36 Timothy. We don't know. On the site, when they cleared it back in 2017, when they started work, there's still remnants of the orange construction fence. There's remnants of silt fence. There's the stakes from the hay bales that have long since decomposed. This picture here, and I tried to get some better pictures, but this shows the silt fence remnant here, the no trespassing sign, and this is where the stone dust is. If I go a little further down for you, there were 2 crossings that were part of that project. They went across 2 wetlands, and they were to put down the plans called a crane mat, wood planking. This is one area where you could see the stakes. It's hard to tell, but that's why we put a circle. These are the stakes from the old hay bales that have long since gone. And this is
made metal stakes?
no, they're the wooden stakes.
They're wooden stakes,
They're the
okay.
wooden stakes, but the hay bales have all just completely decomposed, but all the stakes are still in the wetlands area, around the wetlands area. There's the planking here from one of the crossings. We've got planking from another crossing. There is some sedge growing through the planking. And you can see the remnants of the silt fence right by the wetlands, the actual ponding of wetlands in this area. These are some better views, if you could see the 2 crossings of the wooden planking that's still here. This is crossing 1, this is crossing 2. Crossing 1, there's wetlands that go under, it's a smaller wetland. We walked through here, it wasn't too wet. Wetlands 2.
Is that, actually an active stream or anything? It's just a wet area?
Well, in this area, it was pretty wet on both sides. In this area, you could see a little bit of water going through, but when we came walking through, we were walking in what should have been the wetlands. So whether the planking is impeding it or not, I don't know.
Both of them used to have a vernal pool.
The vernal
to the
pool
right.
is to the, yes.
So they are blocking and of the.
One of the, there's the vernal pool is off to the right-hand side.
They're cutting off
of it.
access to it. Actually, it's become filled in some way.
So this is the remnants of the 2
Sorry.
wetlands crossings that we had.
Mhm.
Some of these photos, I mean, we walked the whole site, so I'm just gonna give you an overview. There are some areas of clear path where you see some erosion. There, when they did the clearing of the trees, there's piles of the stumps and all the debris that are just kind of scattered through the site. Invasive species that have kind of come through in the wetlands area and some of the areas outside the wetlands that were cleared in the upland and beyond. Try to do a comparison. This was a site in, this is between 2017 when they first did it and today. This is when they first cleared it. This is what it looks like today. We try to get as much as same type of area shots as possible. This is a wetlands crossing back when it was done in 17. This is the way it is now. The second wetland crossing, and see how there was all these hay bales that came around here? You have it, but the stakes are just left. You could see more of it. That's the remnant of it. That was one where the little bit of the silt fence is here. This is in the middle of the site. This is actually probably just beyond our upland review area, but I just want you to.
Well, it's within the 500 feet vernal
But
pool
it's
upland.
exactly, so. This goes a little further down towards the Timothy cul-de-sac. This is 17, this is present. And these are some more photos between 17 and present. So that was based on our site visit. This is the bond release report that Scott prepared to the inland wetlands. They were asking for a $75,000 bond to be released. We recommend that restoration and site, the planking and all that, the planking that's in the wetlands really should be removed.
Okay.
So whether you want to release some of it,
No,
or-
motion to deny the bond request, bond release request.
Until the requirements of our staff has been fulfilled, or partial, or, well, do I hear a second to Jim's?
Yeah,
to
until,
Jim's,
I don't know, denied. Period.
May I speak?
Sure.
Go ahead, Ed.
Which,
Oh.
Bill Carboni with Spath, York and Associates, and we represent Mr. Metropolis, who owns some of this land, but not most of it. And we've had this thing surveyed yesterday or today. And I think part of the problem that we have is who owns what property? And most of these photographs that were taken is not our property. Go back in the history a little bit, when Kimball was developing the business park, he had section 4 and it was approved. What does not recognize mean? He had, then when section 4 was being developed, they came back in and they modified the road alignment. And this was to allow him to have more room
It's fine. There we go.
to take care of some soccer fields.
Okay, you're up there, Bill.
Thank you.
You're up there.
What we're going to show you here is,
Oh, yeah, the soccer field project.
This went on and on.
Yeah. He kept coming back.
that didn't do any good, did it?
Yes, many times.
What do you need? You
Are
want
you
to make
trying
it
to
bigger?
rotate it?
Approved at one point, right?
I want to put it back the way I had it.
You approved it?
Something you do, you put something to do with it.
This is Independence Drive, coming into here. This is the cul-de-sac that exists there now. The town owns all the way up to this line,
There's no road there. How,
because when they developed this piece of property over in here, they had a road that went all the way through. And it was approved. The map was filed. Then, after that, they wanted to realign the road to get more level area. So you can see where this flares out. They were going to take this road down through here and over to there. That never went anywhere. It was never approved. The approval for section 4 has since lapsed. There is no approval for the development of the road. However, this piece of right-of-way was dedicated to the town. So anyhow, this is a cul-de-sac. Right here, there is a very large pile that was put in there to obstruct access to the rest of this road. My client owns to this red line, crossed up the right-of-way and back. This is not his property. This is not his property. Those two crossings that you were viewing are here and here. They were intended to be corduroy roads. I don't know which one you call 1 and 2.
The one,
That's 1.
that's one, the other one's
That's
two.
2. So the only thing that he has, Mr. Metropolis, to clean up, I believe, is that much of that corduroy road. This was staked out yesterday or today, and there are now stakes in the,
More stakes.
in the thing. Yeah, now let me see if I can.
use the ones that were already there, just move them over.
This is Independence.
Yeah.
This is the pile of dirt that was piled in there to block access.
Oh, yeah.
Block access to us.
Yeah.
Anyhow, this is, those are about 3 feet high, that's, so what's that, 12 foot
Yeah.
high road.
Yeah, it's a nice height.
So what Mr. Metropolis is asking for is a reduction in his bond, because most of the things that were shown in those photographs are not on his property. These as was shown in some of those, the hay bales have gone, the stakes are still left. There's vegetation regrowing in this area, and he only is, we feel, responsible for the removal of that bridge, or that corduroy road is really what it is, and he is quite willing to do that. And he would say, hold back $5,000 to cover that. Now, he's gonna have to come in from Timothy Hill, this is the cul-de-sac again in Timothy Hill, and come in this way to get access to it, because he can't take the short road in here because of the pile of dirt that was put there. So, in any case, what we're asking for is a bond reduction to, let's say, $5,000 to remove that one corduroy bridge, and that's all that's on his property.
There's no leftover silt fence?
No, there's construction fence and silt fence spread throughout the site. But that map I've never seen, so
No,
I couldn't tell you where I am now.
That's the problem. It was not,
This map is on the land records?
not as you see it here.
No, but there is a map on the land
Yes.
records that shows.
For the improvement of, for the section 4.
Because the town maps don't show that for the property owned, so
I
that's,
think if you go onto the GIS site, it shows this.
Yeah, but it
Correct.
also depends on what that bond was set for. If the bond was set for both those bridges, then it's gotta be maintained for both those bridges.
But he can't be responsible for bonding somebody else's property.
Does that
He
area?
bonded that project,
He
right?
bonded his property, which was up to here.
but the bond included, the original bond was with those two crossings though.
So that, wait a minute,
You still can't bond somebody else's property.
wait.
Why not?
Answer me a question, just indulge me for a moment. Who owns, what is the address of that section of land that is
I don't
up
think I have that.
for grabs, question-wise?
This up in here,
No, to the left. That one.
this one?
That one down there, below Independence.
This
Who
one is so.
This is the
belongs?
one you just had. the
That's
hearing.
that's all part of 64 Cambridge?
Correct.
Still owns.
All right, so technically they've got a violation by blocking the town road.
Well, that's the least of the problem, but the blockage is here, but our property starts here. We're only bonding, we should be only responsible for our own land. Of course, like 64 Independence, this was all done by somebody else. You know, and it's not either owner's responsibility. I have no idea what the bond is for this whole thing. I really don't know. Ours, for the wetlands bond, for the restoration of this road, is $75,000. But this area has begun the regrowing process. There's a large amount of saplings and other vegetation like that in here.
What do you think?
We could count saplings on our hand. We didn't really find too many saplings when we walked. We found a lot of invasive species that were.
Well, that's true too, but I mean, the question is, what would you restore? Other than the removal of this bridge, what restoration is there, or what would be recommended?
There was some erosion and control. There was some erosion from the path that had been cut up over the hill going towards Timothy.
This area right in here?
Yeah,
So there would be new silt fence required?
well, that's out of the wetlands, because if it's, I don't know if that's considered under the wetlands or not at that point.
Well, the hill is up in here, so we're talking about anything within 100 feet of that area.
500, because it's a vernal pool.
Because of the vernal pool, it's 500.
Pool I know of is down
That,
in
yeah,
here.
that's one.
That's one, but there's also two more, there's
There's
in
two
that
more.
area.
In this area, there's
Yes.
another vernal pool?
Yeah.
One on each side, and the one in the middle, actually.
That's not even, not the, she's
Well, that-
talking middle that way.
The one in the middle might have been declassified.
Yeah, I think so. See, this is a new map from what we have.
Right,
So
we've never
I'm
seen this
having,
before.
it's very
Okay, well,
difficult now.
Where were we on
How
my
about we
motion?
meet in
Did
the
I
middle?
made a motion, right?
You made a
Yeah.
motion to deny.
Did I get a second? Anyone
you
wanna, anyone wanna second my motion?
How about I make another motion? I move that we release $50,000 of the bond, or no, $60,000 of the bond, maintain 10,000, and try to get a timetable to get the rest of the work done.
Well, okay,
Mm,
what if that property, that map, or there's still
No
issues
second?
with the
Well,
maps?
we,
Then we discuss it.
So do we ask them
No, I'm sorry.
do we ask them to mark on a map where they are so that they can?
It's marked in the field.
It's marked in the field now, okay.
Now, I mean, this is a map taken from the town land records
It's
and
on- it's
our
online.
title insurance. We got from our title insurance as to where the boundaries were. The map of Independence Drive is taken from the town records. And that line, now, not all of this has been staked, obviously, but this and across that has been staked.
All right, so the area that has hay bale stakes and invasives,
My question is, what would
It's
you want
still
done with that?
yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't really have a problem with the hay bale stakes. I mean, they're just.
yeah, they'll decompose on their own,
They'll
yeah.
decompose over the next 100 years.
Absolutely. They can be knocked down pretty easily.
Obviously,
Um,
the hay bales are gone.
Yeah, the
How
hay
do you-
bales are
How
gone.
do you get
Why?
back there?
How
Quad?
to, on
To
foot.
go via
foot?
Timothy Hill.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to climb over that.
Well, this,
quite
I think I've
I
driven
tried,
quad back there
I
already.
tried driving around it, but it was getting, the frost was
little-
coming around the ground.
Yeah.
But you can drive around, you can certainly easily walk around it, that's,
I know, but you gotta
Yeah,
have
you
something.
kind
to-
of, you kind
Oh,
of hug the, up the northern side
right,
of that.
and you come
And you
across
can kind of
here.
walk, that's why we walked through the first crossing the wetlands, we came that direction going south.
Mm-hmm, okay.
Right, and then,
I just-
then in here, there's a berm.
Yes.
Is any of the, I'm sorry, Daddy, I didn't mean to cut you off. Denise, is any of the erosion that's occurring from that hill getting near the wetland?
It's,
Or is it just eroding in rills and stuff like that?
that's the problem, is it's where these piles are, that's why we said we don't know where the piles are in relation to the property.
Mhm.
Their erosion is coming towards 36 Timothy, whether it's on 36 Timothy or not, we don't fully know.
But now
which
that
is-
it's staked, we should be able to figure it out.
Maybe now we can, but that was
Okay.
part of our thing, is saying we don't know, and that we really need to know where these property lines are.
That's why they asked me to come to this meeting.
Mm-hmm, understandable.
Okay, I'm gonna make another motion that we postpone our review of the bond release until staff has had additional time to investigate and make additional recommendations.
Well, on what? I mean, we know we have to pull the bridge out, right?
Well, do we have to pull the second bridge out?
No, we
But
don't,
that's-
because that's Monroe
Yeah, but if it
property.
was put in.
No, that's
it was
not Monroe property.
Put
No,
in as
that's,
part,
that-
if it
64
was put in
Cambridge.
as part of this project, then you can't just put in something as part of the project, not do
You
the
don't think
project,
that
and
part
then
was
leave it
ceded,
there
is that part of
forever.
that agreement? I remember the agreement, I can't remember if it was ceded to, I thought it was ceded to
No,
the town.
this is the original section 4.
Right,
This was,
the widening, yeah.
Well, no,
Was it
that was
re-
the bypass for them to be
get
able to
there,
get the
right?
equipment to construct the road.
Mhm.
Yeah,
No.
exactly,
Yeah.
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 they
That's
were
not out.
realigning this road down and utilizing these to get their equipment in.
Yeah, that was
But
the
this was in
wetlands.
the realignment of the road.
But that's
Okay.
not where
That's
the road
right.
was.
There's a statute that says, I think it's a statute,
So-
there's something that
So
allows
who owns
you.
that property?
What?
The whole concept was that that road was going to slide south.
Right.
Yeah.
And who owns that? I thought that that was ceded
At
to the
that time, it
town.
was Kimball, they owned everything.
Well, I thought it was ceded to the town as part of that agreement.
Well,
Or would have been, maybe? Maybe it
the
would have been.
road,
I don't
that's
remember
why
that.
this road has got a thing coming down here, it's not right. Anyhow, this road was to come through this area.
Right.
They got that approved by Wetlands, the realignment of the road.
Yeah.
It did not go to planning and zoning. There is something, and I don't know exactly what it is, that allows them 90 days to do work in here until they go to planning and zoning. That's when this was constructed,
And the other one?
both of these.
Okay, that's
who-
my point, they built it.
Kimball built it.
Well, he
Okay,
owned
so
both
that's the
properties
bond.
at the
The bond
time.
is out, is for when that was built?
I'm
No.
confused.
No?
Well, the $75,000 was the bond for our part, up to this red line.
Not those?
I don't know what or Carp, or whoever this is, I don't know what their bond is, I have no idea.
So you're saying those things that were in place and your client didn't put them in?
No. But he's quite willing to take them
But
out.
when he transferred the bond from Carp to him,
No, he went from Kimball
I'm sorry, yeah, Kimball to him,
to Metropolis.
to Metropolis, the bond was those bridges.
Well, I think there may have been
No,
another
I don't think so.
bond.
I really believe it was the bond for the original road alignment.
I swear that when we looked at this, we looked at pictures of those bridges.
It included the bridges, because the bridges were the bypass for them to be able to construct the roadway.
In the new alignment, in the realigned, the southerly alignment.
Well, there was 3 or 4 different alignments, but
True.
those were used in order to get access so that they could then construct the road.
On either
But
side
the
of the
bridges
bridge.
were not where the road is, or was to be. They never were. It was a bypass for the equipment to make a construction of the road.
All right, so how about 10 grand? We hold 10 grand.
You know, how long, this permit's been expired? It's expired?
It is
Yes.
expired now, yes.
It's expired, they haven't done it with the money that they've got. It's not a lot of work. It's a day's worth of work.
Well,
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, but they're just gonna, now they're gonna have their 70 grand, they'll sit back and wait.
75.
Okay, they're, have their,
75.
their $65,000, and they'll just sit there and wait. I mean, they could get this done in a month, and come back and say it's all done, and get all their money back. That's just my opinion.
Well, this is very,
You get people to do it, and they get the whole chunk of change back.
Okay,
I mean, I'm not looking for them to reforest the place, and I just assume that it stay, reasonable, so that another developer wants to go in there and do it, not to have to destroy the thing, but I think they ought to pull the silt fence out that's remaining on
Construction
site.
fence, the silt fence.
And,
wait, what do you want done that's on our property? You want the bridge taken out?
Right.
bridge is,
You want, no,
Silt
the
fence.
bridge, only the ones on our,
is,
we can't go on somebody else's property.
well, you, obviously,
You said
I guess I'd want Denise to determine
Yeah,
a little bit more information on when those went in for what project and who bonded them. Because obviously someone was willing to go on someone else's property and put them in.
well, the problem was that Kimball owned both pieces
He
at
owned
the
both,
time,
everything.
and he
Yeah.
sold off part of it.
And then he sold the
So-
bond as well?
And he sold all his problems to everybody else.
Yeah, so when the bond was
The
transferred.
bond went with the property.
The bond went with the property, so the bond, the original bond for 75,000 for wetlands and 95 for P and Z on 36 Timothy, then got transferred over and Metropolis took them over.
Oh, well
For the
then,
same
I
thing.
guess they could have the portion of the bond that was attributed to their property, if you wanna cut the,
That's a thought.
but I wouldn't even do that. Cause it's not gonna, it won't get taken care of.
Well, all right, no, I'm not saying release the entire bond. I think some should be withheld.
Yeah, but it's not
But-
worth it. I mean, this is in my experience, is you take it down to a number that's even close to the value of the work, and it's just not gonna happen.
How about we
In
cut
a
it in half?
timely manner.
How about we cut it in half? Meet in the middle,
Because then we could be a violation.
If you could,
then it could be.
I mean, if we allow them to do it,
Mhm.
because I mean, the fact that that plank has been in there, and at this point now is a violation, but
Yeah,
we're,
but
we're
we
not
really-
trying to go that path.
Right,
So-
we'd really
Just
rather
saying,
not.
We
We gotta
really
go-
wanna do that?
No, we don't want to go that path, so
I
that's
mean,
what I'm
it's-
saying. So
How
it'd
long
be
is it
better
gonna
to-
take him to do the work? When's he planning, would he plan to do the work?
I have a letter from him today, and he says he does not, he says he wants to do it, but he doesn't specify a time.
Okay, well,
I would-
I'm
I
holding my thought. But no one's seconding my motion, so I'm gonna sit
There
here
is a
and wait.
motion on the
I'm gonna
table, do
wait
I hear a
until-
second?
Well, hold on,
Can
a
I
second. we have
ask-
two motions then.
Can I ask for 3 things?
Guys, come on, be reasonable. A $10,000 bond for that is more than sufficient.
Okay,
To Jim's-
I will agree with you.
Can-
Well, I have to say it after the meeting. Because I was gonna bet you at the same time that it wouldn't get taken care of in the next year.
May
How
I?
much you wanna bet? Because I have a quad, I can get back there and take care of it. You make it
You're
worth my
gonna pull
while.
those,
him?
You wanna make it worth my
Well, the
while?
more you have a discussion, you can do it.
That's, I think your biggest problem is getting back there with equipment to do it. That's what I think.
Well, that's,
But
No,
that's,
we'll
that's
have to come off top,
They did it in the
Timothy.
first place.
We gotta come off Timothy.
I'm also
We can't-
surprised that you didn't tell the commission that the erosion is caused by quads going up and down that bank.
Of what?
the
Sorry, what?
erosion.
No?
I didn't hear.
Quads.
Quads.
Oh, yeah, well, not as much as it used to be. Before we
Well,
started to decide
okay,
it
for the
all,
last year, maybe not, but prior to that, anyway.
there's three things.
It's also a very steep hill, so
We did.
anything, any
That's
water that
fine.
goes down is going to cause erosion. I mean, it all makes sense.
All right, so the
May I
motion
have-
I made,
We have-
it was
Excuse
seconded,
me,
I
before I
thought.
make a
Maybe
motion,
not.
may I request three things be in the motion? One, that it's reduced down to a reasonable amount. Second, that, make it, what do we want done?
Where are the invasives? Are they
Is this
only in the
just-
area that was disturbed?
Yeah.
But it's all,
That whole thing is
it's
disturbed.
naturally regrown itself.
All sides, on
They,
each side of it?
they leveled the whole thing.
Can we say to remove the bridge that is on our property, to remove any silt fence that is in our property,
Construction fence.
or construction?
Both.
Both, whichever. And that your motion would that now. In other words, we should be coming back for a permit to do work in the wetlands. Can we make that part of this motion so I can go in and get it done in a timely manner?
All right, I'll make the motion. I move for the third time that we release $55,000, retain $20,000, that we allow him, without having to come back, to go in and remove the bridge, remove the construction fence, remove the silt fencing, whatever needs to be, anything doesn't belong there. I guess we can leave wooden stakes, and to get it done, and then come back
What
with
about
$20,000.
invasives?
I'm sorry?
What about the invasives here?
We're gonna ignore them.
No. That's my motion.
What are they, the invasives?
And this is within our property.
Within your property. And if somebody can prove that you own the rest of it, you gotta go with the other one too. 20,000 should be enough incentive.
All right. Do I hear a second? Or do you have questions on the motion?
Well,
Because we
second
can have a
first, then
second
question.
first, then we can have discussion,
Yeah.
right? So if somebody would second it, we can have discussion, we can approve it or deny it.
We're gonna have a discussion
The
about
motion.
exactly what they're gonna do, or we've
Yeah.
already decided that. The invasives are out of it, they're off the board?
Not as far as I'm concerned. Not as far as you're concerned.
I mean, if the invasives are there, they shouldn't be there.
Has anybody seconded the motion?
No, not yet.
What are the
So-
invasives?
Somebody second the motion, so.
Well,
we
you
can
gotta
discuss
second
it.
it so you can talk about
Yeah,
it.
Really?
Yeah, technically, yes.
yes.
It doesn't
All right,
mean-
then I guess I gotta second it.
There you go.
Okay, now we can talk about it. Now we can talk about it. So we
It
can,
wasn't my first
Well,
time
you
here, I would
can,
have seconded.
you can talk about it, you can amend it.
right, okay. So we would like, I think, to add an amendment, perhaps, that you want the invasives to be identified
Yes.
and eradicated, dealt
Well, let's see
with.
what it is, you know?
All right,
Make a motion to amend, get a second, then we have to vote on the amendment first.
And then the wood's coming out,
mhm.
and the stakes are staying, but the silt fence is coming out.
What about the pile of stumps and things like that too?
That creates
Yeah,
a
way
environment
out
for
of it.
critters and stuff, right?
But that's within the regulated area, right?
Well, there's some that are
Yeah,
in that therapeutic area.
That turns to soil in time.
Yeah, I'm not terribly concerned about things that are biodegradable. So,
Okay.
personally, just because we want to get this dealt with and handled tonight. But the fact remains that we still have invasives that we haven't identified, so we don't know how we deal with them.
I don't know.
Well, you're not going to.
We gotta identify, and then we'll figure
What,
it out.
help me out here, what was the purpose of the bond in relative terms to invasive species, or whatever it is you're dealing with? Why are they covered under the
Well,
bond?
the bond was a
I'm
restoration
just
bond.
asking the commission. What-
Well, restoration is eradicating whatever you bring in. You're trying to fix whatever you destroy.
Turn it back
That's the
to
So you're saying
restoration
that there's
portion.
invasive species that were brought in or are there because of their?
Yes, that's
You're
what
not
we're
gonna,
saying.
you're not gonna inexpensively replant that. I mean, how are you gonna stop the invasives?
I don't know,
from
that I
growing?
don't know.
It's just not gonna happen.
Let's identify it. I mean, if it's a,
Yeah, that's true, there are different
If it's not
levels of
weed.
invasive. If it's not weed, we're screwed.
Yeah, exactly.
it may pop.
Okay.
Exactly, there's nothing
There
you're gonna
is,
do, except hopefully someone else comes in and develops.
Oh, wait,
the
there's a,
This
is there
was
something to
from the
report?
original,
So it's in the
it's
staff
bond-
package.
it's in the staff package.
Attached
It
to the
was
staff letter.
the original, I don't know, Jim, if you want to look at
This
this.
staff package, this, which one? So many pieces of paper.
And it's the bond estimate, so it says what everything was for. So they had, originally, they had done, what, 5,000 for restoration, plantings, 30,000 for landscaping.
Well, so we have a lot of money for restoration, plantings, and
I think this
landscaping.
is- There's two different bonds. I mean, there's a lot of money sitting there. So,
Well, we're only controlled, we're
Right.
only,
So-
only one of them is ours. So the other one is this P and Z's issue.
And this one is ours.
Right.
Right.
Where is it? Where's that
It's
list?
attached to the staff request.
No, it's the one with the pictures on the front.
No,
No.
it's not. It's a staff letter
It's staff letter.
requesting the release of the bond.
Oh,
I
very,
know they have it.
very back of the
Oh,
picture one.
staff,
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
clearing and grubbing, restoration, plantings. We gotta hold that. Landscaping, we hold that. Center erosion control, you can hold that. Invasive species removal. I got 5,000 for that.
That might be a good way to approach it.
I mean, that's what the original bonds were for.
Mhm.
I think they could have easements and deeds, they can have that part back.
You're very benevolent.
Anything about timbers?
Yeah, that's not listed,
It wasn't part of,
but
It
I'm
wasn't
still,
what he did.
but I'm still
was-
stuck on
they
the, I'm
weren't
still
built
stuck on
as
the,
part of
if
that
this
road.
bond was set
It was
for
done
both
later.
those bridges and both the properties, and they put in things on other properties, then the bond is in effect for both properties. Then how do you release it if both properties aren't restored?
I don't know. It's too technical.
I guess I
Because of the fact that part of it was
What's on
sold
this
and not the other part.
But if I had a property, or I had two properties, right, and I have this big plan, right, and I give you a bond that's gonna cover the whole restoration, and it all gets worked on, and then I sell the bond and this half, right? And then this guy comes, I own the bond, I want the money back. And he's only willing to restore this half, but this half remains untouched
And
and
owned
a
by
mess.
somebody else.
And then the other guy's gonna say, you have no bond, I'm not doing it.
But owned by somebody else.
Yeah, but only because he sold it. He sold half of it.
Yeah, but that's not a legal.
He's
plan
only
to stand
responsible
on.
for what's on his property.
I would agree with you there.
Well, then I guess the other thing
But the
we do
bond is responsible for both. And just because he owns it doesn't mean that it should be released. I have no problem saying to him, fine, you're only responsible for your property, but then only release the bond that's related to his property. Keep the rest until the rest of it's fixed up.
until somebody else does the work?
Yeah, because I mean, you bought the property and the bond came with it? Or your client bought the property and the bond came along?
He had to put the bond in his name. It
It
got
was
transferred
cash.
over.
It was a cash bond?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah. So
Well,
it got
so-
transferred from.
So we got a better
Kimball
deal
to-
on the property because there was a cash bond associated with it. Now you're gonna lose the bond on the other part. It doesn't make any sense. To me, anyway.
I hear what you're saying, Jim. I don't know. that
But
we
do you
can
agree
answer
with
it.
what I'm saying? That's what I'm fighting for, Lois.
All right, so, the
I
only,
agree
As
with
the
him in
town attorney,
principle,
can
but
you
in
possibly force him to go on the other property and clean it up?
We can't do
Well-
that.
It's not a matter of forcing him to go on the other property, but
Oh, we
I
gotta-
do agree
that a bond, the bond is there for what the bond is there for, regardless of what the property is. You're not wrong. So if you release that, then the other property, I mean,
It's not-
I agree with,
yeah,
I
you got
agree
nothing-
with what you've said. They got themselves into this situation when they purchased the property that way, but I don't, I mean, somebody can put a bond on, can put a, you know, a developer can, you don't have to own the property, right? The bond doesn't necessarily go with the owner.
But the
per se.
release of it has to be for our property. I mean, how can we,
But if the
I mean-
bond, as he said, if the bond covers other work that needs to be done as well, that is going to be, it's, look, it's the
It's part of
commission's
the bond.
discretion.
Yeah, it's part
But
of the
it
bond.
is going to put in jeopardy the other work that needs to be done.
this
It just
property
is.
is
So,
already
are you
subject to a
saying,
violation?
excuse me a minute, Ed. Are you saying that that could be a civil matter then between the owner of Timothy Hill and the owner of 64 Cambridge, and the two of them should work it out?
Maybe.
And he can come to us and say he's agreed to let me on his property?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
have to
but
look
maybe
at, when
Timothy
you
doesn't
talk
know
about,
this, and the other guy wants to walk away with all the bond money.
Yeah, that I'm not having to do with it.
Well, he probably deserves all the bond. It was probably factored in his purchase price of that property. But,
That's not our issue.
No,
You know,
the-
I understand.
Again, the commission has the discretion to do whatever it wants, but you do have to realize that if you release it, then you release it for the work that it covers, regardless of what property it's on. That's the bond. That's what the bond is for.
All right,
So,
the only work on the other property is just that other little bridge, right?
I don't know, Denise, is there
I-
work
I
on
don't
that
know
other
what
property?
covers.
There's a lot of silt fence, hay bale remnants, the orange construction fence,
So there you go.
stockpile,
So I'd
the
suggest your
invasive species, I
client,
mean.
your client go and talk to the owner of the other property and get permission to go on there and clean up some silt fence and some.
That's not gonna happen. I mean, the
Well,
staff knows the conflict between the two, but the commission does have a violation on this piece of property.
That's not issued, that has nothing to do with this bond.
what
You
you're saying
have-
is we
I mean,
can
If you release
issue
the
a
bond,
violation.
you have a way of getting this area restored.
Yeah, but a violation and a bond is better than
Twice
just a
as much.
violation on its own.
It's twice as much headache.
Well, I guess, I don't know, where were we in our
I
motions?
don't know.
20,000.
Oh, we got a
We
motion.
have a second,
Okay,
we're
we
in the
have a second.
discussion mode.
Okay.
So
let's-
Jim's original motion was to
Well, mine's off the
release.
table now, mine's been superseded by
Yeah, I think
someone,
so.
some other one, so don't.
Right, I think the motions that's on the table is Jim's motion as amended. You were talking about the
It's not
invasives, right?
amended,
That-
no, we never voted on an amendment.
No, you didn't vote, I'm saying what's on the table.
If he wants to
Your
offer an
motion,
amendment,
and
then he has to offer an motion
proposed,
for it.
he proposed an amendment that nobody seconded.
Well, he
Yeah,
didn't really
but
propose
that's-
it either. He didn't stage it as a motion.
An amendment.
Well, I want to know what the invasives were.
Right, we still don't know. Okay, so do we go back, since there was no formal amendment, we'd have to go back to Jim's
Right. Then
Seconded.
go back to, right.
seconded.
I think it was seconded.
Yes,
His-
it was.
Jim's
Yes.
motion was seconded, so
Right.
that's what the commission has on the table
So
right now.
can we please have that restated so we know what it is that
Yes,
we voted on?
Jim's motion was that to release 55,000, keeping 20,000 for the removal of the bridge, the silt fence, and construction fence.
I'm
In
trying
approval,
to just
of-
the one property.
in approval of doing the
On the
work.
property they own.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Approval of doing the work as part of this, so we don't have to come
It's
back.
also,
Yeah, can,
allowing him to proceed and do the work without coming back with an application to do the
Right.
work,
right.
which would be a little silly, right?
So the commission would retain 25%?
20,000 of the 75. So it's 25%, yeah.
It's a lot of money, 20,000.
What?
It's a lot of money, you know?
Not compared to 90.
I think it's more than enough. I suggested 10. I did 20 so the Jim might support it.
Jim's not gonna support it. Jim knows,
That'll make
Jim
my own
knows
motion to
that-
make it 10.
Jim knows that people, if,
Guys,
I
come
don't
on.
trust people anymore, that they're gonna do
Can we
what they
vote on
say in
this?
a
If you
timely.
vote it down, and then you retain the whole 75, so vote yes or no or whatever, let's.
Yeah, let's move along.
All right, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor of releasing $55,000 in bond? Say aye.
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 And all those opposed?
Aye.
Aye, actually, but
What?
I said I'm with you, but we got outvoted, so we have, the motion carries, 55 to be released, 20,000 to be retained. And with permission to do the work without,
And please do the work so we don't have to.
and do it quickly.
Otherwise, next time we release 2,000, maintain 18,000.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, I'll do it.
I'm sorry for the long drawn out discussion here. Okay.
That was the most fun part of the whole meeting.
Oh, here for fun? Am I missing something?
You have a map,
Past
hold
10,
on.
better be fun.
All right.
You're up for the
Did
next
we
one
say
too?
what he was gonna have to do?
Yes, we did state that. He does know that.
And evasives?
No. No, we didn't get that part.
Now you can take it
You
out.
voted for it. I'll let you know stay.
You know what? Maybe we can address that when the last of it comes in.
When he comes
When
back
the
from
last
40,000.
one comes in. Keep that in mind. Okay. All right, the next one is IWC 2014-11A1, 462, 464 Main Street, bond release requested.
Okay, you have reports in front of you from the engineering department. Basically, there's still a lot of open issues on this. So whether we want to release it or not, I mean, a lot of the open issues have to do with P and Z more so, but they're tied in together.
Wait a minute, I'm looking for my paperwork, I'm not finding it yet, I've got too many files here. Just about it.
462, 464. The one we added in.
Did you give me 4, 5, 7,
You gave it to me, so I thought.
464, okay.
And what used to be,
This is the only one you gave it to me.
Got me.
What was this?
Is this Ellen Evergreen?
No, I think this, is this the one next door to L&L Evergreen?
This is the Crossroads Center.
That's next to Hillendale, in the Spirit Shop, across the street from Clock Tower? Is that one?
What do you think of that? What do you,
Can I get onto
if that's it?
the internet? Yeah. No?
Oh, maybe you can. So. All right, so they're talking about a sedimentation basin, and I wish I knew which one this was. Do you know which one it is, Jim?
I don't know.
464.
I think it must be the one right across from Clock Tower, no?
That's what I'm
The new
thinking.
one?
The new one, this only has a Verizon store in it right now?
Okay. If this helps anybody, let me put, I can put on the aerial so that you
Yeah,
can see.
Ariel, and that'll help.
Yeah, it mentions the Verizon store.
Yeah, there we go.
This is the property right here.
Yeah,
Okay, yep,
there's-
next to Twombly. All righty, not L&L, that's Twombly's.
So that we could do it.
That's an old picture.
It certainly is.
All right, what's
Well,
the
there
issue?
are some wetland
Yes.
things that have to be completed before we release this bond, right? How much is the bond?
Hold on. I know we looked this up. No, he didn't put it on the report, that's why we didn't put it on. He didn't put it as-
This is one bowl, is that what we're?
Page has the staking of the trees within the detention basin. That's ours. And I don't know where the ENS is, that's not corrected.
It's, there's disagreement between the two. It's right at the property line, and they're trying to say it belongs to the other person, but they're the ones developing the property.
And we had a lot of concerns about the ENS for that property too. Okay, so we don't know how much this bond is.
She looked it up, I don't know why I don't have a piece of paper.
Yeah, I don't have it either.
Right, you want to move it to, we'll hold it till next time?
Yeah.
Since we don't know?
Okay, yep.
Consensus, commission?
I second.
Okay. You second the concession? We'll hold it till next time.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Oh, boy.
Time extension, 98 Enterprise Drive, IWC 2018-01 RA1. 30-day time extension.
They
Yeah.
are working with the
Yeah, I don't care what it's for.
office to finalize their plan sets. They've been doing their work, so.
Okay.
Move
Do I hear a
to
motion?
authorize a 30-day
Second.
extension.
Okay, all in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes, extension granted. All right.
And IPUs.
Oh,
Okay,
I'm sorry, do you want me to go ahead?
skipping down to
Okay,
permitted uses
IPUs,
as
I
of
mean, we
right.
have the standard one from Department of Public Works.
Right.
IPU 2020-03, 222 Jockey Hollow, it's permitting of existing structure in upland review area. IPU 2020-04, 138 Greenwood Lane is a septic repair.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Okay, then, you want me to just skip down to where we go to administrative? Oh, no, you have to do deliberations, don't you?
No,
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
we
no,
held
there's
it
nothing.
till
Okay,
next
good.
time.
Nobody was second my motion to do that.
Sorry, Jim, don't be insulted.
Hey, you're not the only one.
That was on purpose.
The gyms need a hug.
I'm not the one with anxiety pains around here.
Okay, 1366, IWV 2014-26, 1366 Monroe Turnpike. Before I hit that one, the two that follow, IWV 2019-15 and 2019-16, these three properties all are adjacent to one another, and they kind of all are interrelated.
How about we put this off until another night?
Well, there's no action required here, right? Are you just
Well, I
updating?
want to issue NOVs,
Yeah?
So she needs our
so
approval to do
I
so.
will
Well,
keep it,
Well, you need them to see if they
You
want
need
to
to see,
issue,
yeah.
and then we'll be, no.
I'm just
you
saying.
want-
Oh.
I feel these should have NOVs done. Violation on 1380. There was a violation of the property in 2014. The staff had gone to have things worked out with them. We still have an open violation file. They never performed any work. They were supposed to come in for a permitted as of right. I contacted them several times. They keep pushing me off and not responding to me. Then we got a complaint for unpermitted work on 1380. 1380 is the property right behind it. Upon further research, we found that the activities at that parcel, it was also observed that there was work on 43 and 1366 are all in relation. Technically, 1380 seems to be doing work on 43 Birdseye and 1366 Monroe Turnpike, all in upland review area, all without permits. We did get, staff was allowed to go on to 1366, which I have photos of that, which was a better way for us to be able to see exactly what was going on. So
So what are they
On-
doing?
On 1380, he has an existing farm. This is where the llama farm is.
Okay.
So the property actually, 1380 was subdivided, and you had a piece of property taken out for 43 Birdseye. Some property was given to 1366, and the remainder of it was 1380. 1366 is the one with the farm.
Okay.
When we went on to 1380, there's cut trees, there's piles of trees and wood chips. There was a backhoe up in the upland review area. There was work being done by the wetlands. Up in this area, there's unpermitted structures. There's a hoop structure. There's a new shed. Trees were cut on adjacent. That's why I said it's kind of a mess. But the three all interrelate. This is in probate right now. They are aware of activity. They claim they did not do it. Observation seems to point to property owner down here.
And they're all related to each other.
In some form or other, they seem to be related. The fellow that owned 1380 passed away. I think he was the uncle when he gave a piece of the land to the guy at 1366. And that's when they carved out 43 and...
Okay,
This is, you could just see, this is the,
he's getting punchy.
I know he is. I'm trying to talk as fast as I can.
You're doing good, Denise.
This is just the areas of the farm.
For
It's,
the alpacas or something.
Yes,
he's the one with alpacas.
exactly.
Technically, based on the past violations, he really needs a permitted as of right. And that's what I've been trying to
Only
get.
for certain activities, others have to be permitted. But
Right.
he needs to come in for a jurisdictional ruling.
So this is where we've been trying to,
Okay,
so that's the 13,
Yeah.
okay, that's the farm, that's the 1366 part. Okay, I'll get out of this
Yeah, you know
one.
which one it is.
So I can like decimate my wetlands.
Just get a goat.
They're really long.
So
Look alike from a distance.
the 1380 is the one I was telling you that's in the back, and we had complaints
Okay,
of work being done. So this is the one the back one that we had the access onto. This is where we saw the unpermitted structures and the shed, but it's actually it's being done by the person that owns 1366.
What was that first thing? He's clearing, land is being cleared without proper permits. What permits does he need for?
Well, if he's in the upland review area, he can't be, yeah.
And potentially land of adjacent property?
Yeah.
By him?
Yes. That's why,
So if I need wood, I can go clear my neighbor's property?
well, but it's a relation.
it's a
And we
relation.
can't
So
make you fix it.
this is why I'm trying to go to this map. So this is the 1380 map. And you can see this a little bit better. So here's the new hoop structure. There's the existing house that predates wetlands. There's another structure over here. All that predates the wetlands regulations. But the hoop and poly is in the upland review area. There's a new shed over here. It's kind of outside. Here's a wetland. All this is being cleared and mined and farmed. All this has been cleared, cut. There's a pathway. When you come in, this is where we saw the trees. The road comes along the edge of the property. We came in up this direction. There's a road that traverses right through the wetlands and comes up
All right,
to
so
this area.
Do you
All right.
think they're
So
gonna
you-
claim like
cease and
farm?
desist.
You've tried
It
to
doesn't
make
matter.
contact with these three people?
Yeah, the people at 43, which will be the next one, their property was completely clear cut, not by them.
Prior to their purchase?
No, after their purchase, and it's been clear cut and it's being farmed by,
With permission?
No.
Oh, without permit, they're farming?
They did not know that their property was clear cut. We got a complaint
I
on
think-
Birdside
They
that
didn't
there
know
was
what
the
water.
residents-
They didn't know where the line was?
All right, how about just issuing an NOV?
Yes, 'cause it's all-
That's why I said I can make it quick, because they're all kind
Yeah,
of
Yeah, please.
interested.
NOV, and you can explain to them that if they have a violation on their records, it's really gonna screw up probate.
Well, and I mean, I've talked, 43 and 1380. 1380 has an attorney in probate. The trustee has spoken to us, allowed us on her property. There we go.
Oh, okay.
And
Sorry, I didn't realize that you were.
Fedor. I'm Attorney Laurel Fedor.
Okay, come on up, introduce yourself, please,
Yes.
for the record.
Hi, I'm Attorney Laurel Fedor, and
You gave
when
us
we
the-
met, I came with the
Trustee.
the fiduciary for the estate, and we met, we went over the violations. See, what the story is that this is a 30-acre estate, and we're trying to separate the property for each party. Mr. Schrodel, who owns 1366, he's one of the heirs, and Rosemary Torak, she's another one of the heirs, and she's a fiduciary. So we're trying to divide the property. So in the meantime, Mr. Schrodel took it upon himself, because he lives there, to do some extensive work that we didn't know about.
So the other two don't live there, and that's why they didn't know?
There's-
Well, right,
Yeah.
we
Okay.
knew he would do farming in the same area, but we didn't know he was gonna go
Oh, man.
what he
What a
did.
mess.
So now we have a problem. So that's why I'm here, it's because we wanna fix this, however we're gonna do that. So that's why I'm here, to try to work with the commission, to however we're gonna resolve this. I was listening tonight to some of the other presentations where they had some kind of remediation plan. So we're gonna have to look at that in conjunction with one of the ways that we're thinking of dividing the property. We did just want to put in a driveway, but that wasn't appropriate for the regulations. They wanted a road, so maybe that will have to be done in conjunction with this remediation.
How many acres?
30. It's like 30 acres, but you can get like 4 lots out of it, because there's a lot of steep hill
Yeah,
in the
there's-
back.
Where's the
Back
probation?
from,
I'm sorry?
Where are you in probation now, or in the probating of the will?
Well, this is where we are. This is where we are.
Is it divided yet, or not?
Well, it took time for them to agree on a division of where the property line should be, so that took time. But now we're still at the point of, whether to put a road in, or, so we're gonna have some negotiations now because of this problem.
Well, that takes a permitting process anyway. What if the
Right.
commission were to say, and I'm not speaking for the commission, I'm just saying a suggestion, what if the commission would say, we're gonna issue all 3 owners a notice of violation,
Right,
and, which comes with a cease and desist, you can't do anything that makes this worse.
Right.
And as soon as you get the property resolved, the ownership resolved, you come back and the right people answer the right parts of that violation. Which whatever that means.
well, I don't have a problem with that.
Because I think our notice of violation is how we initiate this process. In other words,
Right.
you coming with a remediation plan doesn't help unless we already have a violation that you're going to respond to.
and what was good is, I sent them a pre-letter, and they did come and meet with me. 43 came in, and I let them both know that we were discussing this tonight as a potential next step. I've been keeping them in the loop because they have been acknowledging what's
Okay.
going on, and we're trying to help them as well.
Right.
We're not trying to
Right.
give them a notice of, this hopefully is also gonna help with the other aspects.
Well, the notice of
See, I don't
violation-
know about that. That's, he's his own person, he does his own thing, as you can see from your other violations, which were unheeded.
Right.
So that's why, we'll see how I
Well,
can
if we
manipulate
went-
this.
If we did the notice of violation, it would also give you guidance on what's wrong.
Well, that's true,
The
that's
sum
what I
total of
need.
what needs to be addressed.
That's what I need.
Yeah.
So maybe it is a good idea to go to them at this point,
Because that starts the
and gives them
process
guidance,
of,
otherwise they don't
Yeah,
know what
because
they're
I mean,
dealing with.
he's put structures up on their property, and then the other one that cut out 43, he clear cut it, and he put a fence around, and he's using it for farming.
Right,
But I think we can go that route maybe and then be tolerant and give you time to get it.
right, because then I could go to the probate court and say, hey, look, this is what's going on. And then I can have them go, you know.
Might be a tool for you to use, actually.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, so we'll issue you an NOV, and you follow the instructions on the NOV, and.
Yes.
And,
That would be
we'll
good.
take it from there.
All right, thank you.
Okay? And that usually means that the next meeting is a show
More than
cause.
likely
Maybe
There's a show
give them more
cause
time.
hearing or
But we
within
can
that
give them
time
more
period.
time than that.
Yes, we can
already.
give them more time.
Yeah, I
Because your
mean,
next meeting is usually when?
2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, that's,
yeah,
I
so we
think we
could,
can
we
Well,
could,
Patient.
Yes.
yes, we can.
I mean, I will
Patient. Probate is nasty.
I will
we know.
keep, you know, communicate.
I mean, typically, next meeting
whatever.
would be the 11th, so, I mean, if,
You're not thinking of leaving, are you?
let me see. We could do it, I mean, I could send and say, you know, to be present at the
Give them-
25th
Give them a
meeting,
couple months to,
You know, just
get
to-
back together.
just to get
I
it.
think as long as there's correspondence
There you go.
with the
Right.
office, and you keep us abreast of what's going on, and then we can be flexible. How's that sound?
Right, because it'll take me time even to get a probate
Yes.
hearing.
Mhm.
So wait on
Understood.
issuing, or
Issue.
I think
No,
we
issue.
need to issue, so
Okay,
that gives
but
her
don't-
direction, but we're
Correct.
not gonna follow through on anything.
Thank you.
So we're not
Until
gonna
we
say
go
be at
further.
this meeting yet, we're just gonna,
Or if you wanted
You
to,
could give
then we
me
just postpone
60
it
Unless
days?
they want to.
well,
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking.
60 days?
So do we wanna set a meeting,
Yeah,
have
no,
you come in
you
front
need
of
to
us
set
in
some
2 months?
date.
60
No more than
days?
60 days.
That
How's
would be
that?
fine, 60
If you're
days?
ready
Yeah,
earlier than that, you can come in
Right.
earlier.
Okay.
He suggested 2 months.
If she said 60 days, I'll
That's
give her
60
a date
days.
of
Yep.
Should give me
the
enough
meeting in April.
time
Yeah,
There you go.
to,
Nice.
okay.
That's
to
60
come
days.
back and tell you where we are.
If you're
So
not done by
at least
then,
you
you'll
need a date in
address it
April.
with her and ask for
Right.
more time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good
Thank
night.
you for sitting through our entire
That's
meeting,
okay,
sorry
it's
about that.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Okay,
realize I-
the next thing is
Okay.
the minutes of January 22nd. Why don't we just table that till next?
Let's
Let's
table everything.
table it. Okay, do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Second?
second.
Thank you.
Oh, my Lord.
All in favor?
All against?
Yeah,
No,
right.
stay another hour.
Everybody, get the hell out of here.
Now, let me ask you, 60 days, but now there's 3 different